We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Hey, I'm FTFE, welcome back to the channel that does to stupidity what Adobe did to Flash Player. Let's just get straight into it. We have a new Flat Earther on that we've not had before. His name is Bobby Murray. Let's just get him to introduce himself. Bobby, hello, welcome to the channel. How you doing?
I'm doing alright, man. What's going on?
Not bad. Thank you very much for joining. So we're going to have a discussion about gravity and the rotation of the Earth, right?
Yep.
Well, why don't you just take a couple of minutes, introduce yourself, and let people know your position, then we're just getting to having a discussion.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's not really much to it. You know, I've been dabbling in it for a few years. You know, I go in and out. Some days, you know, I'll go kind of hard on it, like try to have discussions. But then some days, you know, it gets to be so much of a hassle because it just feels like all you do is just argue back and forth, back and forth. It gets repetitive. But I mean, like I said, I'm willing to have a conversation. You know, be polite, respectful. I don't have any issues with that. I mean, you're entitled to your belief. You know, you're going to believe what you believe at the end of the day. I'm going to believe what I believe. But, you know, there's no reason two people with two separate beliefs can't have a conversation or to try to have some sort of an understanding. So,
Okay.
with that, you know, I mean, whatever.
Yep. So
I mean, I would like to talk about
Sorry, that cut out a bit there. Say that again. Oh no, no. He's driving.
Yeah, sorry,
so
if I go in and out, yeah, if I go in and out, just let me know and I'll repeat whatever.
Yeah. So you said you wanted to start with, and then it cut out.
Oh yeah, I was just saying that'd be a good start. You know, a good starting spot. We can go with gravity and rotation.
Okay, so why don't you just tell us what you think about gravity? Right. Did you hear there?
Gravity's non-existent. There's no such thing as gravity. Oh yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Why do you think there's no such thing as gravity?
Well, honestly, like I said, man, looking into it, you scientists, they can't explain what it is. You can't prove it. You just know it's there, and then you just have no way of explaining it, describing it. You know, you just use it as a word. And it's everything. It's like fraction. Refraction explains everything. You know, it's just a mythical force. Only where you alter your surrounding environment.
Right. So, but why do you say it doesn't exist when we can measure it?
Sure, you can say you can measure it, but you can't physically measure it. The only way you can measure it is if you go into like a vacuum and use like an experiment. You alter your environment to be able to test it.
No, not necessarily. You know, the Cavendish Experiment is an amazing way of measuring it. It's done thousands of times a year. Like, there's many ways to measure gravity, and specifically the Cavendish Experiment that is done by first-year physics students all over the planet. Yeah, I don't know if this is going to work.
Going through
it.
Yeah, I went through a rough spot, man. Hold on one second. I went a little dip. I got
you.
But no, I heard you say the Cavendish Experiment. But yeah, like I was saying though, the Cavendish Experiment can be reproduced with electromagnetism though as well.
No, it can't.
Yeah, it's like it's basically the. I said.
There's
you
nothing.
Can reproduce it like with veins and roots and stuff like that. It can still form and make combine into one using electromagnetism.
Okay, I don't think you understand what the Cavendish Experiment is. It's a literal demonstration of an attractive force between mass.
With the two weights tied to the end of the stick on a wire, and then they.
Yeah, and you can do it with any material, and you get the same results, meaning that it's nothing to do with electromagnetism.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that you got these two things drawn towards one, making one like one root, like the way your veins work. It goes in and makes one. It can still be done with electromagnetism.
But no, it can't be done with electromagnetism if the weights are made out of wood which it has been done with wood, and it still works exactly the same, and you can still derive the gravitational constant exactly the same. That you can't reproduce what the Cavendish experiment does with electromagnetism.
I disagree, but okay, if you let's skip past the Cavendish, okay?
I really don't want to, because that is something that basically proves that gravity is a thing.
Yeah, but I'm telling you that it can be proved with electromagnetism, and you're saying
it can't be proved. I've told you that it literally can't, because the Cavendish experiment can be done with any material, and you get the same result. If it was due to electromagnetism, there would be varying result depending on the material used.
So when it was written out, though, what does it say? It says everything you need to use to do that experiment. It says you use 2 lead weights. Either way, what I'm saying,
it doesn't say lead weights. You can do it with any material.
Or lead bowls.
You can do it with any material. What's important is the fact that you have 2 large masses and 2 smaller masses. That's it. It doesn't matter what the materials are made of. Cavendish used lead because it doesn't have natural magnetism.
Well,
so
either way,
I'd really like to ask how the Cavendish experiment isn't a demonstration of gravity when there is no other known phenomenon that can explain the results.
Well, I just said electromagnetism can do it.
Yeah, okay, you've said that, but I have refuted it by telling you it can be done with multiple materials and get the same result.
The 2 liquids, I know, but I'm just saying that the same thing can be done with electromagnetism. That's like how your veins
You keep
work.
saying that, but Bobby, hold on, dude.
One.
You keep saying that it can be done with electromagnetism, but you cannot replicate the Cavendish experiment with electromagnetism, because you can do it with multiple experiments. Please stop repeating the same thing when I have refuted what you've said.
I know, but that's all you're basically saying. We're at an impasse, because you're saying no, it's not. I'm saying yes,
no, it's not an impasse. I'm explaining to you how you are wrong, Bobby. Do you understand what I'm saying? The results of the Cavendish experiment cannot be because of electromagnetism, because the results are exactly the same regardless of the materials used. That debunks the opinion that you are giving that it's electromagnetism. It refutes it outright. It kills that theory dead. It cannot.
I don't think so.
What do you mean you don't think
because
so?
You tie 2 bits of fucking rubbish or whatever it is together, then you're gonna be like, oh well, they rotated. That proves gravity.
It matches the predictions of the gravitational acceleration and the law of gravitation devised by Isaac Newton. It is something that can only be explained by an attractive force between the masses. It cannot be explained by electromagnetism or anything else. Okay,
so mass. So let me ask this: mass attracts mass, yes?
That is an empirical fact, yes.
Okay, so can you show me anywhere in nature where a large body, by virtue of mass alone, attracts another smaller body of mass to its gravitational field?
Yeah. Have you ever seen a big shiny thing in the sky at night called the moon?
That's not in our nature, though. That's not natural.
That is, I'm sorry, but Bobby, in science, nature has a specific meaning. In science, natural means anything of physical matter, be it man-made or found in nature. It doesn't matter. And the moon is most absolutely of physical matter. It is in our nature, and the moon does exactly what we say it would do. And also, every single Cavendish experiment does what you are asking to do, and that also happens in nature.
So you can show me something that does that, something I can observe?
The Cavendish experiment. You can observe the Cavendish experiment.
No.
Yes, you can.
I told you I disagree with that.
I don't care if you disagree. I don't agree to you need to explain, right? You need to give actual reasons that are valid for why you disagree. Otherwise, your disagreement is irrelevant. I've told you how it cannot be electromagnetism because the material is irrelevant. You get the same result. So it can't be electromagnetism. So what else is causing the results of the Cavendish experiment?
I don't know. I told you my excuse. You say no, so.
Well, yeah, I've debunked you. So there needs to be another reason. Otherwise,
you can.
I've absolutely debunked you because are you telling me that you would get the same results regardless of the material if the attractive force was due to electromagnetism?
I'm not 100% because, like I said, I'm not
exactly.
A scientist
But you
in that
always
field,
get
but I'm
exactly.
Telling you, there's studies, there's experiments where you can do it. You use electromagnetism, and it takes 2 veins of liquid, and they pull them, and it forms into one.
That's not
the
the
same way
Cavendish
that your
experiment,
veins work. It's the same. I know, but it's showing you it gets the same exact result.
No, it's
by
nothing.
using
It's nothing to do with the Cavendish experiment. The Cavendish experiment debunks the fact that you are claiming it's electromagnetism. There is no way it is electromagnetism. We need to have a reason why that happens. Otherwise, you cannot say gravity isn't real, because that is the predictions of gravity according to science. So you can't just dismiss it by saying electromagnetism, because that doesn't hold up to scrutiny. You need an actual reason to give me valid reasons why the thousands of Cavendish experiments that are done all over the world all the time give the same results all the time.
Well, like I said, it's been debunked several times. There's been several experiments that have shown you that the Cavendish experiment does not prove gravity.
There's never been debunked. No one has ever debunked the Cavendish experiment.
Well, then, like I said, man, we're at an impasse because we're not going to agree on this. We're both going to disagree. The Cavendish, there's nothing further. I say no, you say yes. I say
Well, yeah, but you've got no valid reasons to say no, Bobby. Bobby, you've got no valid reasons to say no, though.
Okay, well, you've got no proof of gravity working in nature. You say the moon. That's
the Cavendish experiment is proof of that. The Cavendish experiment is gravity working in nature.
Okay, so why then can I not take like a 14-ton boulder and then hold it up in the air, and all these little dust motes and little pebbles don't just get attracted to it?
Because there's a much larger mass underneath your feet called the Earth, which is why that weight would be so heavy.
Okay, but that gravitation force of the Earth doesn't affect the millions and millions of gallons of water, but the moon can pull it up off of the Earth to cause.
Well, it does affect it. That's why.
But you can't say that.
Yeah, actually, it all matches the prediction. Bobby, hold on. It all matches that. Everything you just said, but everything you just said matches the predictions of gravity. That we can show that the water is held to the Earth. The moon has its own gravitational influence, and it's pulling on every molecule of water, which is fluid, so it can move a lot easier than the actual mass of Earth. So what happens with the tides due to the moon is what we expect to happen. It all matches the predictions of Newton's law, which are demonstrated to be fact by the Cavendish experiment. It's not mute. It's a fact. I'm sorry, you cannot just deny it.
Well, yes, you can, because listen to this. You said that the moon has an effect and it pulls on the water, right?
It pulls on everything.
And that the Earth's gravitation. Okay, well, why are there no tides in large lakes and large
bodies
of water that are free?
There absolutely are tides in lakes.
No, there is not.
No, there absolutely is. There's literally tables for the tides in lakes. I've actually shown. I've had the same claim, Bobby. Hold on. I've had the same claim before.
Tides only happen on bodies of water that are connected to the ocean.
No, they don't. I've had the same claim before. Bobby, hold on. You keep saying things that are not true. I need to stop you. What you are saying is untrue. I have shown the scientific studies that show that there is tides on large lakes, even on small ones.
There's no tides on lakes.
You are absolutely incorrect. So I can show you the evidence that it is.
There are hundreds of lakes.
And they have tides
of water. None of them are affected by the moon's gravitational pull.
There's literally tables for the tides in the lakes in the Great Lake region in England. There's literally tables for those tides.
No, the only thing I've ever
seen. You can't just go no. Bobby, hold on. Hold on. You cannot just go no when there is literally tables for high and low tides in lakes in England.
No, I don't know about that.
Well, there is. I'm telling you, it is a fact. Apart from the fact that there is, and there is tides in lakes that are recorded. You keep saying there isn't, but there is.
Okay, then how come the tides are uniform? How come the tides wouldn't be different? If the moon's overhead one spot right here, wouldn't it be pulling up the water higher in this location and then like 100 feet down the road?
What happens with the tides matches where the moon is, and it's even the case that when the sun and the moon align is the points when you get the highest tides, because you get the solar tides and the lunar tides, right? So when the moon and the sun are in the same direction, you get even bigger tides in that direction. But a lot of the tides around the world are also controlled by, the fact that land masses are in the way, so it moves the water in a certain area. But when you add up all the vectors, it points towards the moon.
And then why do you have 2 tides a day if the moon only goes overhead once?
Because the moon is also exerting a gravitational influence on the Earth, as well as the water. Okay, but the further away from the moon you get, the less the gravitational influence is. So the water that's closest to the moon is pulled the most, right? The Earth, which is in the middle, is pulled a medium amount, so it's pulled into that water that is bulging towards the moon, and that leaves a tide on the other side, which is slightly smaller, because That's the furthest away from the moon, which has the smallest gravitational influence from the moon acting on it. So the gravitational acceleration from the moon is acting on the water, the Earth, and the water.
So the tides happen at the same time every day?
Yeah. Well, depending on where the moon is, obviously.
Well, how's that?
Well, it's not. It's not every time. It's not the same time every day. Hold on. It's not the same time every day. It depends on the position of the moon, which is why it's different times every day.
Oh, okay. So So everybody just comes out every day and tells you what time the tide is. It's a different time.
Yeah, we can predict what time the tide's going to be because we know where the moon's going to be.
Okay. Well, I still call that BS because no lakes don't have tides.
Lakes do have tides. You are completely.
No, they don't.
I have presented the scientific evidence on this channel before that lakes have tides.
Okay, well, I'd have to see that because everything I've read and seen that lakes are not affected by tides.
Well, you're wrong. I'm telling you right now.
Well, I mean, you can say that all day, but I mean, I'm just telling you what I've read and what I've looked into.
Just right now, Bobby,
tides.
just from now, from oceanservice.noaa.gov, do Great Lakes have tides? Studies indicate that the Great Lakes spring tide, the largest tides by the combined forces of the sun and the moon, and then it explains that it is very, very small. Lakes do have tides. A lot of the lakes are so small.
So small.
Wait, let me finish. Let me finish.
You have to be told it's there.
A lot of the time, the lakes are so small that the gravitational influence causing the tide is actually overpowered by the forces created by the currents of the water itself. But if the body is large enough, in big, large lakes, you actually have noticeable tides of several centimeters. And the studies are all here to prove it. I can give you loads of them.
Can I ask you a question, though, real quick, just to be, like, for real? Okay.
Yeah.
Logically thinking, how does that make sense to you if the ocean is constantly moving and it's got its currents and all that? Is not the ocean so much stronger than a lake? So why would the ocean be affected dramatically, though, but these lakes are barely affected? Okay?
Well,
it's just a basically
let me answer then. Let me answer, right? So the Newton's law of gravity is Fg equals G, m1, m2 over r squared. That m1, m2 is the masses of the objects. If you've got more of a mass, so more water, there's going to be more of a force applied to it and the tide is going to be larger. If there's less water, less force is being applied to it, so there's less tide because it's being pulled less. Okay? And that matches the predictions of Newton's gravitational law. That, you know, it's what everything that happens is what we predict. There is no flaws or things that are wrong. And it goes back to the fact that we can measure gravity. We have done, and it's not just the Cavendish. There is, you know, hundreds of measurements of gravity with different ways of doing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, I can't bring up my notes right now, but even Newton said that the moon and then the tides are his weakest link that he put in there. That is super hard to explain that the tides are
actually matches Newton's law.
The water. Well, I'm just telling you what Newton said in his own words is that was his most troublesome thing, and that barely even.
Yeah, he sorted it out though, because he came up with Newton's law of universal gravitational attraction, which works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, none of that stuff is a law, though, dude. Everything is still a theory. Everything is. You had to make that relativity.
Let me just read this to you. Let me just read this to you from a subscriber in the chat. Duke Silver says, I live in central Canada and I fish the Great Lakes regularly. Our licenses are dependent on tidal and non-tidal water bodies. I'm from eastern Canada, home to the highest tides in the world. So where this guy goes fishing in the Great Lakes in central Canada, they literally have to take that into account when they're getting their licenses, depending on where the tides are. So, you know, there is tides in lakes. This is a fact.
Well, if I could pull up my notes, I could tell you the name of the scientist. Even comes up and talks about that there's no large bodies, no lakes that are affected by
I'm sure one scientist overrules the rest of science. That's not how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Well, I mean, apparently Newton does. Apparently Newton's one scientist that overrides every bit of science in the history of, like, ever.
No, not at all. Newton actually built on previous works. That's how science works. We build on what has come before us because science is transitional. We learn as we go. So a lot of Newton's work was based on stuff that came before him, Kepler's laws and stuff, right? And Einstein's work was based on what Newton did.
But so you believe all of Newton's work, though? You back all
I don't have beliefs.
Okay, so you put Newton's ideologies ahead of yours.
Newton didn't have ideologies. He did.
He did. He was actually He's actually an alchemist trying to convert stuff into
but
gold.
that stuff is irrelevant. All I care about is the scientific laws that he demonstrated.
I'm just saying he made up this whole theory, you know, that it came out. It's like, oh, this is that.
He never had a theory of gravity.
And then I can make a special rock made from the sky out of the
all that is irrelevant to the laws that he had proven.
None of his laws are proven. All of his laws are proven. Theory of gravity. No,
he never had a theory. Bobby, hold on. Stop 1 sec, please. Bobby, please, stop 1 sec.
You keep interrupting me. You keep interrupting me. Let me.
I need to explain something so we can continue. So give me a sec, right? Newton never had a theory. He made an observation. That's it. Newton never had a theory of gravity. He simply had an observation and wrote down what he saw, which was his law of gravity, which is empirically proven all of the time. And all of Newton's laws of motion are proven. They're, empirical facts. You can't say that these things aren't true when they're part of everyday engineering. When we do engineering, like building when we build large bodies, when we build large bridges and stuff, we have to actually use Newton's law to build that bridge properly.
Okay. I'm just telling you, it's a gravity. It's a theory.
No, it's not
real.
Gravity is not a theory.
Yes, it is. It's not. Your scientists even say that it's their toughest challenge right now is to explain or describe gravity. We know it's there. We can measure certain things.
We can describe it quite easily, but it's not a theory.
But you cannot. No, you cannot. You cannot.
We can. I can explain. I can describe it to you right now. I can describe gravity to you right now.
Describe it.
Gravity is an apparent attractive force between all masses in the universe, or it can be described as curvature in space-time, causing things traveling in a straight line to follow the geodesic. That's two ways of describing gravity right there.
Okay, so you can't prove it, though. You can't physically
I can prove it. The Cavendish experiment proves it.
The Cavendish experiment doesn't prove anything.
Yeah. It proves that gravity has an attractive force between masses, and we can derive the gravitational constant from the results.
Then show me on Earth, show me in nature, in our reality, on our plane of existence, where a large body of mass attracts a smaller body of mass to it.
In the Cavendish experiment.
Why does it only work in space? No, it doesn't, dude. That's rubbish. I'm telling you.
It's not rubbish. I've done it, Bobby. I've done it myself. Yeah. I've literally done it myself.
And it proves what?
It proves that there's an attractive force between masses.
Okay, dude. There's an attractive force of electromagnetism. This whole world.
Oh my God! You've reset. You've just reset.
Radio waves.
I have told you why it's not electromagnetism. Please stop going back to that. The Cavendish experiment cannot be explained by electromagnetism.
You say Cavendish experiment. Well, then stop saying Cavendish experiment, because every time you say it, I'm going to say it's counteracted with electromagnetism.
But it's not. I've told you how it's not. You are wrong.
Well, give me another proof. Give me another example then. If there's
another example of a measurement of gravity, okay. You want another example of measurement of gravity? The LIGO installations measure gravity.
No, I want an example of proof of a gravity that we can observe. Okay, I don't need
the LIGO installations.
Experiments. I don't need algorithms. I need something observable that I can observe myself that proves gravity exists.
All right. How about this? This is very easy. Right. This is brilliant. So, do you know how Neptune was discovered?
How what?
How Neptune was discovered? Yeah.
No, that's a celestial body. I'm talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are they not in our nature?
That we live.
I'm sorry, but science. Bobby, stop. Bobby, I have to stop you. In science, that is part of nature. We're either talking about science or we're talking about pseudoscience. Which one do you want to do?
Space is not natural. Space is not nature.
Space is absolutely natural according to science.
You can go into space and naturally survive yourself, right?
People have been to space. It's a thing.
You could survive if you were.
Right, but it's part of nature. It exists in nature, Bobby.
Walk around and survive.
Bobby, that doesn't decide what nature is. Everything that we see in this world is nature, is natural. And in science, natural means anything that isn't supernatural. So I can absolutely use celestial bodies. It answers your question. So once again, do you know how Neptune was discovered? Yes or no?
I mean, all you're going to do is talk over me. I mean, what's the point?
Well, I'm trying to answer your questions, and you won't let me.
No, I've already told you, though. You're talking about celestial bodies.
And there's nothing in science that says I can't talk about celestial bodies.
In our reality, in our realm. For this discussion.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that is in our reality. Whether you like it or not, that is in our reality.
You can go to Neptune. You can walk outside and see Neptune.
We've sent probes to Neptune.
You can touch it.
We've sent stuff to Neptune.
Have we?
Yes.
You seen it? You seen it? You've just literally seen a probe and touched it and seen it come
you
from
can deny
Neptune.
it all you
know
want, but
it
you would
did.
have to provide evidence that
I'm
it
not
hasn't
denying
happened.
it, but that's not
Yeah.
logical. I can walk down to the
What about it
grocery
isn't
store,
logical?
pick something up, and show you. Because I can walk down to the grocery store, pick up a bottle of whatever, and show you, like, hey, this came from this store. You can
okay.
tell me
All
about
right, all right,
something
all right.
from Neptune, but you have to go into data and talk about improved trajectory, whatever it is.
That's not a
Oh,
word.
we were there. This shows it right here.
Bobby,
Here.
you are denying science right now. All right. What you are doing is
Well, I
asking
guess
me
I'm
to
going
practice
deny that.
pseudoscience. What you're doing is
No,
asking me
I'm
to practice
asking you.
pseudoscience.
No, listen. I'm asking you to give evidence of something observable that proves gravity that's
That
in
is
front of
observable.
our face in our reality. No,
It
it's
is
not.
observable
I can't go
in
there
our
and physically
reality. I
watch
don't
it.
understand your objection. It is observable in our reality.
You say
All right.
gravity is real. You can easily prove it. You should be able to
Yeah,
have
the
something
Cavendish
that you can
experiment
touch,
proves it.
feel, and
All right, you know
show
what,
right
Bobby?
there.
Give me 2 minutes, and I'll talk you through another experiment. Okay, a very easy one that was done in Scotland. So, in Scotland, there is a mountain called Mount Schehallien. Okay, this mountain is unique because it is the most symmetrical mountain in the world, which means that it's pretty easy to calculate the mass of it. All right. So what they did was use that mountain to actually weigh the world. And the way they did that was to hang a big plumb bob off the side of the mountain. And because the mountain has a lot of mass, the plumb bob deflected towards the mountain. This is called the Schehallien experiment. It's been repeated several times by different scientific teams using different methods. But what they have found every time is that the mass of the mountain attracts the pendulum, the plumb bob towards it exactly as predicted by Newton's law of gravitational attraction. That is exactly what you want. That is in our reality. Like you say, that is on our planet. That is in a mountain that is a couple of 100 miles away from where I live. And it's been repeated several times. It replicates what Cavendish did with his experiment on a much larger scale. It's literally using a mountain. So there you go. Are you going to just deny that happened?
So the mountain attracted the plumb bob. So it just stayed stuck to the mountain for the rest of its life. That plumb bob is now attached to the mountain.
It deflected slightly towards the mountain. And by slightly, I mean less than a centimeter, as predicted.
Oh, well, but that's not what it happens, though, right?
But that's what we say. Let me answer.
But that's not
Let me answer.
No, because you say a rock. You say the moon is held to the gravitational of the Earth, and it spins and it rotates and it cycles, and it's there permanently now forever. Okay, you're talking about a hunk of metal hung by the rock, and it moved maybe an inch towards the mountain, and everybody's like, oh my God, it moved an inch. It was attracted gravitational pull.
Yes, yeah, it matched the predictions of what should happen.
Well, I find that awfully hard to believe that.
I don't care about your incredulity, Bobby. You just asked for proof of something that happens in our realm, as you ridiculously requested.
You said it moved like in inches. You said
it moved way less than an inch.
Or whatever.
It moved way less than an inch. It moved the amount predicted by Newton's law of gravitational attraction.
So the breeze could have blown in it, and then you.
Well, no, they had containers around it and everything. It was in a shed or in a big building that they created around it, and they hung the plumb bob, and it was attracted towards the mass of the mountain as the predictions showed. Exactly what you just asked for.
How did they measure the movement?
Well, you can easily measure how much something deflects.
Well, how did they tell? How did they tell how much movement happened?
Well, you could, when you set it up at first, you could, have something next to it that is showing that it's straight, and then it deflects away from that. And again, it's actually been done. It's actually been repeated using lasers and stuff, to much more accurate.
Well, what about
static?
What about static electricity?
What about static electricity? That would be.
I mean, that's the same type of thing. You can rub some.
A mountain doesn't have static electricity. Yeah, a mountain doesn't have static electricity.
You're saying it moved within like inches, and I could
take
a balloon and rub it on something and stick it to a wall. You see what I'm saying?
It moved the amount.
How does that prove gravity?
Listen to what I'm saying. It moved the amount predicted by gravity. Gravity said it should move this amount, and it moved that amount. Okay. It's exactly what you asked for. 100% what you asked for. What you're doing right now.
So why does that only happen?
I'm still talking right now. Bobby, I was still talking.
Okay.
What you're doing right now is taking that goalpost and going for a run.
No.
Yeah.
What I'm doing right now is I'm trying to figure out though, why does it only happen with a giant plumb bob and a mountain? Why
Because
does it
you
not
need
happen
big
with
masses
like a
to observe it.
mansion and a, okay, so why does not Mount Everest have like tiny little boulders rotating around it like a freaking halo around the top of the mountain?
Because that's not what gravity predicts would happen.
Well, you've got
Everything's
a
still
rock
going
that's
much
floating
more
around
towards
another
the.
rock.
Let me finish. Everything's still going much more towards the Earth, but there will be the tiniest of deflections towards Everest. But the Earth is still much bigger. That plumb bob on Schehallien still hung down, but just deflected ever so slightly towards the mountain. The amount predicted.
Man, but you can sit there and say that it deflected, the amount predicted, and all that, but that's not what you're saying gravity is. When you talk
Yes,
about
it is
the
what we're
moon
saying
being
gravity is.
no,
Why are you lying?
You're saying the moon is in a fixed position, that it's stuck into our orbit or whatever.
Yeah. Do you
our
know what an orbit
gravitational
is?
pull,
All right.
and it's
All right. Do me a favor.
yeah.
Do me a favor, Bobby.
So,
Describe an orbit to me.
oh man, you
Go
gonna
on.
let me talk, or are you just gonna interrupt
Yeah. No.
me every time?
I'm asking you. Describe an orbit to me.
I know, but I was sitting there talking to you, like the same thing. Apparently, your gravitational pull, something gets stuck in it, and it rotates around its orbit. That's why you're supposed to have
Why does it do that?
satellites rotate. Huh? I don't know why it does that. I know
Well,
supposedly.
let me explain to you, because an orbit is not the same thing as a plumb bob just hanging down. An orbit happens because something is, the moon is still in free fall towards the Earth, right? But it has a tangential speed, a sideways speed, so fast that it misses the Earth and keeps going round.
It misses
and
the
because
Earth.
there's no friction in space, there's nothing that will ever stop that motion. So it's, imagine a big trampoline, right? And you get a big bowling ball and you put it in the middle of that trampoline, okay? Then you take a little marble and you roll it onto that trampoline. It's not going to go in a straight line, is it? It's going to start curving towards that big boulder in the middle, right? And it's going to form an ellipse. Now, imagine that you could remove the friction of the trampoline and remove the friction of the atmosphere. So there's no reason for that marble to slow down. It's just going to keep going around that bowling ball on the trampoline. And that's what an orbit is. And so what happens with the moon matches the predictions of gravity. What happens with the Cavendish matches the predictions of gravity. What happens with the Schehallien matches the predictions of gravity.
So, all that being said, I still think that's garbage because it doesn't make any logically doesn't make any sense. Okay,
It makes perfect sense.
You're in free fall. No, it doesn't. Because if you're in free fall and you got the moon just constantly falling towards the Earth, but it's rotating and spinning and swirling, as it rotates around the solar system, how come the Earth does not lose its grasp on the moon every time it gets close to the sun? I mean, if the sun has the Earth locked in its gravitation, but the moon is locked in the Earth's gravitation.
No, the moon's also in the sun's
Earth
gravitation.
never relinquish its grip on the moon.
Well,
Yeah,
the moon is.
the sun is 10 times more
You want me to
stronger
answer?
than the Earth.
Do you want me to answer?
Why does it not pull the moon away from the Earth?
Right, I'll answer if you let me.
That's how it's predicted.
Yeah, I'll answer if you let me.
Does it match the prediction?
Yeah, I'll answer if you let me. Brilliant. So, the moon and the Earth are both orbiting the sun. They're both doing it at the same time. The combined mass of the moon and the Earth are orbiting the sun. The moon and the Earth are in freefall towards the sun at the same time. But they have a tangential speed enough that they miss it and keep going round. But then that's one gravitational well. But inside that gravitational well, we have the individual gravitational well of the Earth, which the moon is trapped in. It's just the different reference frames. But what's happening? The sun. Let me finish. I haven't finished. The sun is pulling on the moon just as much as it's pulling on the Earth. But both of them together are tangentially going around it and missing it.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Well, all I'm saying is that the Earth is still holding on to the moon, but
I just explained why. Yeah.
It's gravitational by the sun, but the sun keeps all the planets even further away locked into a gravitational pull.
Yeah, because they're doing everything's doing exactly the same.
But it still has But the sun still has its gravitational pull on all these other giant, larger bodies of masses.
Yep,
But this
absolutely.
really small one, which is actually the biggest so-called moon to a planet, our Earth's moon is one of the hugest moons. The sun has no effect. Never pulls that away from us.
I just told you it does have an effect. Did you not listen to anything I said? Because I just told you how it does have an effect.
But did you not listen to what you said, though? For billions of years, it stayed in the same exact position, and it never moves. It never gets closer to the sun.
Actually, it does move a little bit, but that's irrelevant. But yeah, for billions of years, there's no reason why it would change. Once it's in that orbit, there's no reason for that orbit to stop just naturally, because there's nothing in space to slow down the Earth or the moon to make it fall towards the sun. You know, it's the Earth and the moon are one system that is orbiting the sun, and within that system, you have other systems going on. You know, well, no, you don't know, obviously, but that's how gravity works. Everything that happens matches the predictions of what gravity says, 100%.
So I guess a hot air balloon's anti-gravity, then, right?
Oh, goodness me. Do you know how to calculate a buoyant force?
I know how buoyancy works, but
no, you don't, because you only know how buoyancy works if you can calculate a buoyant force. I asked you a specific question, Bobby. Do you know how to calculate the buoyant force?
I asked you a question before you counter with another question. I asked you a question first. I said, is a hot air balloon anti-gravity?
No, buoyancy is a thing.
My question with a question.
Well, there you go. Yeah, no, exactly. the answer is no. Buoyancy is a thing. Buoyancy exists. Do you know how to calculate the buoyant force?
The mathematical stuff? No, I don't know how to break it down and do it.
Right, okay, so how you calculate the buoyant force, which is the force that makes things float, is rho v g, or rho gv, right? Rho is the density of the object, v is the volume displaced, and g is the gravitational acceleration. You cannot have buoyancy without gravity. It is an effect of gravity, right? The reason the hot air balloon is rising... Don't interrupt. Let me finish. The reason the hot air balloon rises, right, is because the inside of that hot air balloon has become less dense than the air around it. There's less mass. There's less density, which means that there is less of a gravitational force acting on the balloon than there is on the air outside of the balloon. So it pulls down the air outside of the balloon more than it does the balloon. That creates a force in the opposite direction to gravity. And this is called the buoyant force. The reason the hot air balloon floats is because of gravity. I was a submariner in the Royal Navy. Buoyancy is something that I know all about.
Oh, okay, so you got a beach ball, right? So when you drop the beach ball, it falls to the ground, but when you submerge it underwater, it rises to the top. So,
yeah, because water is more dense than air, yeah. Yeah, so you can calculate the buoyant force. Right, let me answer. Let me answer. Before you keep talking, let me answer.
If I drop a brick under the water,
right,
it's going to continue to fall.
Bobby, stop. Bobby, stop. Let me answer one question at a time before you go on, okay? A beach ball has a buoyant force on it. That buoyant force is dependent on the medium that it is in. That is rho, the first part of the buoyant force equation. Right? The density of water is a lot more than the density of air. Therefore, when the beach ball is in water, it's going to have more of a buoyant force applied to it than when it is in the air. Okay? Now, next question, which was something about a brick.
No, I'm just saying that gravity loses control over the balloon or the ball once it hits the water. But if I drop a brick, the brick continues to float or sink through the water.
Yeah, because you can also calculate the buoyant force on that brick.
There's no such thing as gravity. The laws of density.
There is. Hold on. One thing at a time, Bobby. One thing at a time, Bobby. One thing at a time.
I'm trying to finish.
One thing at a time. We need to do the brick first, right? Yes, the brick is going to sink.
All it is saying one's falling, one's floating.
Yeah, right.
All it is.
Let's talk about the brick and the buoyant force. The buoyant force acting on the brick is dependent on things like the mass of the brick as well. You know, how dense the brick is. Okay? The brick will have less of a buoyant force acting on it because the density of the brick is actually more than the water. So it's going to have a negative buoyant force technically. Right? But you can calculate the gravitational acceleration acting on it. So it's going to fall slower in the water because of that buoyant force acting on it. The brick falling through the water and the beach ball rising from the water matches the predictions of gravity. Everything matches the predictions of gravity. Okay? Now, what was your next point? Please go 1 point at a time.
Well, I'm just. Do you honestly want to have a conversation, or do you just want to like preach a sermon to me?
Well, no, I'm trying to respond to each thing that you say.
And then you're going to interrupt me every time I say, and then you're just going to say no, no, no.
Well,
Okay.
Bobby, I'm trying to respond to each thing you say, but when you say 4 or 5 stupid things at a time, it makes it a lot harder to respond to. So I'm trying to keep it to 1 point at a time.
Why does what I say have to be stupid though? Well, see, there you go. That's
Okay, all right. Let me rephrase it.
Stupid.
Let me rephrase it. What you said is. Let me rephrase it. What you said is ignorant. That's not an insult. You are ignorant of physics.
No, it's not though. Well, if you sit there and tell me that there's a force called gravity and it's there, but you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't feel it, you can't measure it, but only
you can measure it. I've told you can measure it.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
You literally can. Right. If you go to mctoon.net/G, there's an entire page of measurements of gravity.
By who? Who put that up there?
Scientists.
Some scientists that wrote it down? Yeah, right.
That performed experiments that are repeatable.
So you sit there and well, this is what.
No, I didn't catch any of that. Sorry, you cut out.
That is repeating what some people.
Yeah, Bobby, you cut out. I didn't catch anything that you said.
Somebody wrote down and they said this works.
Bobby, right, start again. I didn't catch what you said. You cut out.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm like out in the country. I live way out in the country. So either way, what I'm saying, man, is basically all that is you're just repeating something that some scientists wrote down and they told you it's true. And you have to take their word for it. And they have
you don't
some
have to take their word
experiments
for
that
it.
you can do. They have some experiments somewhere that make some sort of sense because they wrote down so much mathematics and equations and stuff like that. Dude, you know math can lie, right? You know you can tell lies with math, yeah?
No, you can't.
Yes, you can.
No, you
You
can't.
absolutely can tell. Yes, you can because like
No,
I
you
said,
can't.
You take. Yes, you can.
No, you
If
can't.
I can't remember. If I had my notes, I could pull up my
You
notes.
can't tell lies with
Absolutely
maths.
lie
Maths doesn't
with
tell
math.
lies.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can.
I'm sorry, no, you can't.
You can tell lies.
I have a degree
Yes,
in
you can.
physics. I'm telling you now, no, you can't.
So all you're going to do is shout me down and say, no, you can't, as soon as I start
But
talking?
you cannot tell lies with maths. That's not how maths works.
You can tell lies with math.
No, you cannot.
Can get an answer that does not work in reality. Yes,
No, you
can.
cannot.
Absolutely 100%.
No, you cannot.
Tell lies with math.
No,
Yes,
you
can.
cannot.
That's the whole way.
You cannot tell lies with maths. That's not how maths works.
Yes, you can.
No,
Yes, you can.
I'm telling you, you are wrong. I have studied maths for a big portion of my life, and I am telling you, you are wrong.
Uh-huh. You want to bet?
Yes.
Okay. Do you do a simple equation? I don't have my notes in front of me. I could find it and show you. But you take you take 2 cups of water. One's half empty, one's half full. You put the equation in where E whatever it is, where one's half empty, one's half full, and then when you add it up, it says that the half empty and half full. And like I said, I don't have the notes. I could show to you, but it writes down a solution that does not work in reality. You can lie with math every day.
No, you can't lie with maths. I'm sorry, but you simply don't understand what's going on.
By doing it in...
You just have no idea. Yeah, the
Bro,
way that you described experiments just now was completely wrong. Right, Bobby,
okay,
let me make this clear.
Because
you
I don't
hate
have my
science.
I don't have my stuff in front of you.
Right, Bobby, let me make this clear.
Listen,
Bobby,
dude, all you're doing is shouting over me.
I'm trying to talk, but you don't stop to give me a chance.
I was in the middle. Look, I've been in the middle of trying to say something. You keep cutting me off and say, no, it don't, no, it don't, no, it don't. Dude, this is not how you have a conversation. You're not even listening to me.
I'm telling you that you're wrong. I have proven that you are wrong. The fact that I have a degree in physics and a degree in nuclear engineering proves that you are wrong.
So because you have a physics, because you have some sort of whatever, that proves everything, right?
That proves that maths doesn't lie because I've used maths.
All the scientists in the history, all the scientists in history sit there and they had some sort of solution too until somebody else come along and proved them wrong. Okay?
That's how science works. Science is transitional.
Somebody comes along. So therefore, you can sit there and say you got a degree, yada 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 yada, but that don't mean you know everything.
Well, it means that I've used my degree practically.
Nikola Tesla came along, said scientists come along with equations.
Yeah, lovely. Nikola Tesla was a dumbass.
That doesn't work in reality. That does not relate back.
Bobby, Nikola Tesla was so dumb that
ever lived.
Bobby, Nikola Tesla was so dumb. Hey, Bobby, will you let me talk for a second, please?
No, I'm in the middle of talking. You start shouting over
You
me,
keep
man. I thought
going
that's how
on.
we were
Let
gonna
me
do it.
respond to something, please.
Go
Nikola
ahead. Tell me
Tesla
how
was
stupid
so
Tesla
dumb.
is.
All right, will you please? Thank you. Nikola Tesla was so dumb that even though he worked with electricity, he didn't think electrons existed.
Well, maybe because of the time. I don't know, dude. How do you know
Right?
that? He didn't think electrons existed. But
It's in his
he's
works.
one of the
I've read
smartest
his
men in the world.
works.
And he busted Edison, but
Why is
Edison's
there like
credited for
nothing
everything.
that
But
he
Edison
didn't bust
couldn't do
Edison?
anything.
Why is there nothing that Tesla made that kind of, is around anymore?
Everything, due to the way of our car, what we use in the cars, lasers,
No, that's nothing to do with
radio
Tesla.
waves.
No, that wasn't Tesla.
Look up his look up all of it. Look up all his
Yeah,
patents. Look at
I
his
have
remote
done.
control
You are
radio
wrong.
waves. Okay, you're sitting there saying that nothing that he invented is around
Yes, why
to
kick a
today?
moo cow? I've lost quite a bit of weight. Thank you for noticing.
That's ridiculous, dude.
So you're just denying all the measurements that we have of gravity, and claiming that experiments are just made up to make you
Equations.
think things, even
No,
though
I'm sure there's no.
I'm in the middle of talking and you start talking over me, Bobby. That's why I keep having to interrupt you, because you never let me get a sentence out without interrupting me. So please don't. Thank you. Right. You are denying how experimentation works. Experiments have to be repeatable, but we can change parameters of them all the time, and we do. That's how we can test what people say. We don't just believe what they've written down. We test it. We validate it. We try to disprove it. And if we can't disprove it, then we accept it as fact for now. If something comes along in the future and disproves it, then we shift our paradigm. That's how science works. But at the moment, there is nothing that has disproven gravity. Nothing at all. And that is a fact.
Let me know when you're done so I can respond.
Yeah, please respond specifically to what I've just said.
Okay, specifically what you just said, that's not true. There's no such thing as gravity. You can't test it. You can't use it. You can't prove it. That's
Okay,
my stance.
but your stance is incorrect because I have personally measured gravity.
Well, I've personally done all types of stuff, and I can say things all day, too.
No. I've
But
literally
I'm just
done it.
telling
And
you.
in fact, I've got videos of two of my good friends building their own Cavendish experiments.
Cavendish doesn't prove anything. I've already
It
said
proves that there's
Cavendish
mass
is
attracting
rubbish.
mass, as predicted by
But
Newton's law.
there's mass attracting mass, but you can't see it in reality unless it was moved by like half an inch. Then you're like, oh, look, it attracted it. That's
Matching
not
gravity.
true.
Yes, that matches gravity, Bobby. Matches what we say
Okay.
gravity does.
Okay. Buoyancy and all that stuff. Density.
Yep, effects of gravity. Buoyancy is an effect of gravity, yes.
Even thoughts of gravity.
Sorry?
You can't have gravity without any type of buoyancy of density. It doesn't work without
Buoyancy is a
and
result of
density.
gravity.
Okay.
Buoyancy is a result of gravity. You need gravity to calculate the buoyant
is a
force.
result of the atmosphere it's in.
Incorrect.
Anyway,
That's why
do you wanna
gravity is
move on to
part of the
something
buoyant
else, or do you
force
just wanna
equation.
do you want to keep going back and forth over this?
Okay,
I mean,
but
you wanna
I'm just saying right now that gravity is literally part of the buoyant.
Gravity.
Yeah, hold on,
Cavendish,
Bobby.
all that is
Let me
garbage.
respond. Right, let me just respond to you. Gravity is part of the buoyant force equation. You cannot have buoyancy without gravity. Gravity is empirically proven. Until you have disproved the Cavendish experiment, the Schehelian experiment, the LIGO experiments, the Pound-Repka experiment, and all the other experiments that have demonstrated gravity to be empirically true, then you cannot just dismiss it out of hand. Okay? If you want to move to the rotation of Earth, then we can do that.
We'll do all those experiments. Just show maybe half an inch of something being.
They show what
attracted
gravity
to something
predicts.
else?
Yes, they show exactly what gravity predicts. Right. So we're gonna do the next bit a bit different, Bobby. Okay. We're good. Right. We're gonna do the next bit a bit different. Okay. We're gonna talk about the rotation of Earth. Right. But I'm gonna ask you for evidence that the Earth is stationary.
Can you?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Like froze.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I'm just saying, can you hear? Yeah, I can hear you, but I'm just like frozen on the screen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's fine. Your video's frozen. It's fine.
I can hear.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I can hear you fine though.
yeah, I can hear you. Right? Okay. So we're going to talk about the rotation of the Earth, but I'm going to ask you specifically for some kind of evidence that the Earth is stationary. So what have you got?
Okay. Michelson-Morley experiment proved that it is stationary. The Aries failure proved that it's stationary. You know.
Okay, can I ask you to describe the Mux-and-Morley experiment for me?
There's never been an observable.
Right, can I ask you
the two lights? Yeah, he sent two lights in different directions, trying to get different speeds to be able to account for the rotation.
No, that's not what the
Mux-and-Morley difference in between them. They came back to both the same speeds.
That's not what the Mux-and-Morley experiment was. So the Mux-and-Morley experiment was attempting to... wait, I was talking and you started interrupting. Bobby, you start... When I was in the middle of talking there, you started interrupting. So let me finish what I'm saying.
Go ahead, terribly sorry. I apologize.
So, no, the Mux-and-Morley experiment wasn't to test the rotation of Earth. The Mux-and-Morley experiment was an attempt to detect aether drag as the Earth orbited the Sun and went through the hypothetical aether. What they did was they knew at different points in Earth's orbit, the Earth would be traveling at different speeds. So they performed the experiment at different times with the experiment pointing different directions on Earth. They knew the Earth was rotating. They knew the Earth was orbiting around the Sun. And they wanted to see if that orbit would drag the aether with it, which would prove the aether theory. What they found was there was no detectable drift. They detected no drift that would have been caused by the aether dragging. That's what it was. It wasn't even an attempt to measure the rotation of the Earth. The apparatus they had couldn't have measured the rotation of the Earth. What they said was either the aether didn't exist or the aether rotated with the Earth. They didn't say that the Earth was stationary, because the entire experiment was based on the knowledge of Earth rotating and orbiting the Sun. It was nothing to do with testing rotation. It was to try and test for aether, which they couldn't find, and they disproved the aether.
No.
Yes.
What they did...
What do you mean, no? I've studied this in my physics degree.
I know they don't teach you about it because they don't talk.
Oh, I've read the actual paper written by Mux-and-Morley.
Okay. And so you know that.
Sorry, I've actually read the actual. I've got the actual paper that I read all the time.
I figured.
So
yeah.
There's nothing in the Mux-and-Morley experiment that shows the Earth didn't rotate.
Yes. There's actually 100% of it shows that the Earth did not rotate. That was the whole point of the test.
No, it wasn't. The test was for aether drag.
They sent a light. Are you gonna let me talk, or are you just gonna? Are you gonna talk over? Or are you gonna let me finish?
I just told you what it was for, and you're saying no, it's for something else.
No,
do you want me to bring up the paper?
You talk. No. No.
Do you want me to bring up the paper for you?
You talked something else. That's not what it was.
Do you want me to bring up the paper for you?
You're gonna fucking talk over me.
Would you like me to bring up the Mux-and-Morley paper?
You want me to talk?
Yeah, but before you do, would you like me to bring up the Mux-and-Morley paper for you? And we can read it together.
Before you do, would you like me to bring up Mux-and-Morley? No, I would like you to take 2 fucking seconds and listen to what I'm saying. See, this is that bullshit that I'm talking about.
So are we going to go through the actual paper, or are you just going to talk about it?
Just keep talking. I'm going to talk about it. I'm telling you, dude. That's full of shit. Because what was
the paper they wrote is full of shit. Brilliant.
Prove the rotation of the Earth. Oh my God! See, I figured all you're gonna do is just talk over me. You're gonna talk. You're gonna say no. You're gonna say this. You're gonna say that. You're not even responding to anything. All you're doing is
I'm trying to respond to you. I've responded to you by telling you what the actual experiment was, and I've got the paper that Mux-and-Morley wrote in front of me. Do you want to go through it?
As soon as I start talking, you said no, no, no. As soon as I start talking, you're like no, no. Okay, I've looked at it extensively too. The test was to do the rotation of the Earth, and that's why they were messed up when they didn't get their whatever it was supposed to be 30 km whatever rotation. Because when they sent one beam of light towards the direction of the rotation, what the supposed Earth's rotation is, and the other light out in front of them, and they both came back at the same exact. There was no difference in it, and if there was supposed to be rotation,
was a difference. There was a drift.
Difference in the waves at least. No.
Yeah. So there was actually they detected a drift which was. They detected a drift which was.
I can pull my shit up.
Yeah, they detected a drift which matched the errors of the equipment that they had, but the actual experiment was a test for the aether. That's what the experiment was. Now I've got the actual paper in front of me. Do you want to go through it? The paper written by Mux-and-Morley.
Sure, go ahead.
Right. Okay.
My thing.
Sorry, one sec. Right, bring up this screen. Who told you that about the Maximori experiment? It is quite hilarious.
Let's see. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
I'm trying to find my thing. Go ahead, you can read your thing. I'm trying to find something.
Actually trying to get the proper paper, one sec.
Yeah. See, that's what they're saying. Michelson and Morley tried to check the speed of the Earth through the drag of the ether.
Yes. Yeah,
They
and
passed
they
light
found
in two
that there was
directions.
no aether.
No.
Yeah.
No.
You just read it. They were trying to detect the speed of the Earth through the luminiferous aether, right? But what they were trying to detect was as the Earth moved through the aether, it would create a drag. Similar to if you put your hand out of a car window when it's moving, right? You're going to feel the air dragging on your hand. And the theory of luminescent aether said that as Earth moved through it, it would have that drag, which they would be able to detect with a drift of the light. But they never detected that drift because there was no luminous ether being dragged by the Earth. That's it. I'm trying to get the results. I had the paper up before, but I've lost it.
Well, also, side note, while you've got like a second while you're looking. Look, I ain't trying to just argue back and forth with you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I would like to have like an actual conversation, but we're just going to shout over each other and not actually be able to talk and hear each other.
That's fine, but that involves you not just dismissing things outright. Like, you've just gone, oh, no, that doesn't prove anything.
That's what I'm saying.
When it does, it proves the things that we predict that gravity will do. So if we predict gravity will do something based on what we say gravity is, and then it does it, you can't just go, well, no, that doesn't prove anything. It shows that gravity is doing what we say it will do. I want a discussion with you, but a discussion isn't just you going, oh, I don't believe that. Right? And you just read to me yourself what the Maximori paper was, right?
Trying to. Let's see.
Yeah. Oh, where is the app? I've lost the paper. I'm sorry. So, yeah.
Yeah, it says they expected to detect a speed of 30 kilometers, and there was no
which
movement.
would have been the drag of the aether, yeah.
Yeah, they only measured 1 to 10 kilometers per second.
Yeah, which was within the margin of error of the equipment that they were using. So that what they detected could be written off as margin of error of their actual experimentation equipment. But
they still detected no curvature or no rotation.
Well, no, they weren't trying to measure rotation. Again, they were trying to measure the velocity of Earth with respect to the luminiferous aether. And what they found was there was no luminiferous aether.
The rotation.
So, as the Earth orbits around the Sun, it must run through the aether. That will cause the aether wind near the Earth's surface blowing in the direction opposite to Earth's motion, right? The Maximori experiment was designed to measure the extra time it took a light beam to travel there and back against the aether wind, compared to the light beam traveling sideways across the aether wind. This set up a light source, mirrors, and a telescope on a big slab of stone. A single beam of light was split into perpendicular paths and sent bouncing back and forth 4 times across the stone. The 2 beams were then recombined before they entered the telescope. The idea was that one of the 2 beams would travel just a little bit faster than the other, so that when it arrived at the telescope, it would be slightly ahead of the other beam. Unfortunately, the difference in arrival time would be very, very, very small. So they'd done all the mathematics based on the results that they get, and they found that there was no difference depending on which way they shone the beams, which meant that there was no aether affecting the speed of the light,
Yes.
right? But then what we've
But see,
done
that's what
in
I'm
modern
saying. You're
times...
changing it,
wait,
though.
wait,
That's
hold
not
on,
what they
hold
were
on,
doing,
hold on,
though.
hold on. No, that's what the experiment is, and that's what the actual paper says as well, right? But what we can do in modern times is use much better equipment that is actually set up to detect the rotation of the Earth. You know, and luckily for us, that's been done.
If the Earth is spinning at one rotation every 24 hours, that means that every hour it has to turn 15 degrees. And if the gyroscope is mounted anywhere on Earth, it's going to drift. In today's 21st century navigation systems, they're using what's called a ring laser gyroscope. It is extremely precise. If we could simply get one of these ring laser gyroscopes, we would be able to prove once and for all that there is no rotation to the Earth. One of the people in the community actually purchased one for $20,000. But what we found is when we turned on that gyroscope, we found that we were picking up a drift, a 15 degree per hour drift.
So we
If the
can
Earth
actually
is-
measure the rotation of the Earth today using much more modern equipment. And here's the great thing. That's something else that I've also done, Bobby. I have myself measured the rotation of the Earth using a pendulum. So if I can measure the rotation of the Earth using a pendulum, then how can the Earth be stationary?
I don't know, man. I'm just telling you that also that laser that shit you just did though, that's the let me see. Yeah,
That's the
they
Sagnac
only
effect.
recorded the Coriolis. Yeah, they only recorded the Coriolis effect and not the rotational Sagnac effect.
No,
man.
no.
That's what I'm saying. All those
a ring laser gyro
Yes,
cannot detect Coriolis.
yes, it is. That's the job of it.
No. A ring
Let's
laser
see.
gyro can't detect Coriolis. That would be a physical gyro. A ring laser gyro detects the rotation of the Earth due to the Sagnac effect. That's the
ring
principle
gyroscope
behind
measures detects rotation using Sagnac
Sagnac interferometers, yes. Not the Coriolis, the Sagnac effect. Coriolis is what you use for mechanical gyroscopes. And you know what they did when after they did that with that ring laser gyroscope, they commissioned a flat earther called Stephen P. to build a mechanical gyroscope. Because they were like, that must be like the heavenly energies or something affecting it. A mechanical gyroscope won't show drift. So then they built this amazing piece of technology. And this mechanical gyroscope also detected drift, which would be due to Coriolis, not Sagnac.
This right here says ring laser gyroscope measures / detects rotation using Sagnac interferometer.
Yes.
They are fully equipped to detect both the Coriolis effect, a physical effect of light beams proportional to the area of the interferometer, whatever, and the Sagnac effect. Okay, so it's either or. If the ring laser gyroscope measures detects the
results
Coriolis
that they were talking
effect,
about
then the
were from
Earth
the
is
Sagnac
stationary.
effect, right?
And if the ring laser, gyroscope measures detects the Sagnac effect, then it's the Earth rotating. It's not either or. And it says that the Michelson and Gale record only the Coriolis effect and not the rotational Sagnac effect.
No, the Michelson Gale was actually just a much larger version of the Michelson Morley. What are you reading from?
I'm just I got a bunch of notes.
Yeah, but where did that come from? That sounds like it comes from a flat earther, because that's not what the Michelson Gale experiment was.
Why has it got to come up? Why does it have to come from a flat earther?
Because that sounds like the flat earther's version of the Michelson Gale experiment. But the Michelson Gale experiment wasn't what you just explained. The Michelson Gale experiment was just... Hold on, Bobby. Hold on. The Mixon Gale experiment was just like a better, more modern version of the Mixon Morley.
Why are there different versions of these experiments?
To do things more accurately.
But I'm just saying, how's there different versions of experience?
Because
all
you
I'm
can
saying
change
is that's
parameters.
what I found.
Okay, every time I try to answer, you start talking again. You ask me a question.
I didn't hear you say anything.
Yeah, you ask me a question and then, oh my God,
dude. That's why
Bobby,
I'm fucking talking.
Every time you talk and ask me a question, I try to respond and then you start talking again.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, right? So, what I'm showing you right now is a physical, mechanical gyroscope literally measuring the rotation of the Earth. Okay? So we've done it by measuring Coriolis.
Oh, okay.
Right? And, like I said, I have personally measured the rotation of the Earth using a pendulum, which I'm doing again as part of one of my documentaries that I'm making. And that is something that is empirically verified by a simple experiment called Foucault's pendulum. With a Foucault's pendulum, you can actually use the drift of the pendulum over time to calculate your latitude on Earth. So as the pendulum starts swinging, right, it's got a straight line path, okay? But then after a certain amount of time swinging, that path has deviated, okay? And if you measure that angle that the pendulum has deviated, you can actually calculate your latitude on Earth. You can find out your position on the planet just by the Coriolis forces being applied to a pendulum. So if the Earth is flat and stationary, what is the explanation for the drift of a swinging pendulum correlating to your position on Earth?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't read into that or looked at it, but I mean, I guarantee you that's not because the Earth is rotating and making
How can you guarantee that?
Move around.
How can you guarantee that?
How would that ever physically work? You could take a bowling ball and put it on a thing and just have it start spinning, like just have a blower and just spin and spin and spin it, and you can put another little pendulum on it and have it do little circles and stuff, and it's going to make
if you do the experiment wrong, you get different things.
Like
you're right.
this.
Right? But a Foucault's pendulum is set up a specific way. It swings backwards and forwards, and over time, it drifts.
Okay, so how does this? Okay, using your experiment, your theory, your work and stuff, how does that work? What does the gravity do to affect your pendulum to just make it slowly start veering off of its straight path?
It's nothing to do with gravity. It's Coriolis.
Well, you just said it did. Okay, with the Coriolis effect. Okay, so the spinning makes it just kind of just start doing this because there's rotation of the Earth.
Yeah. So the pendulum is attached to the Earth via a pivot point, which means that it can swing. And when something is swinging, it maintains its swing relative to its original position. Okay? So it starts swinging backwards and forwards, but the Earth continues to rotate underneath it as it's swinging backwards and forwards. So you can, based on your position on Earth, if you're at the poles, it's going to do 360 degrees in 24 hours. The closer you get to the equator, it's going to take longer because your the direction of swing relative to the axis of rotation gets slightly altered as you move around the planet. So you can calculate the Coriolis forces that would be applied to something depending on where it is on the Earth, and using that, you can actually figure out your location on the planet. And that's how we know it works, is because we can take the physical data that we get from these experiments and actually calculate our position on the planet, matching the predictions that Coriolis says will happen.
Okay, so can I ask a question real quick?
Please do.
So your pendulum is swinging and floating and stuff now because it's held from a pivot point above the Earth, right?
Yeah, it's held by a pivot point. Right, so it's not going to just keep going in one
it's
direction.
Hanging in.
Right, okay, so that makes it swing backwards and forwards. But that pivot point also allows it to maintain its relative swing within 3D space.
So by using that logic right there, that pendulum is detached from the Earth. So that pendulum basically is like steady, and that's just at the Earth and everything rotating around underneath it.
Yeah, basically the Earth is moving underneath the swinging pendulum.
Okay, so if you can pick up that pendulum and have it just sit there and float in the air and let the Earth roll around underneath it, why does that not happen with a helicopter when it hovers over the ground?
Because a helicopter isn't a pendulum. A helicopter isn't attached to the Earth via a pendulum point, and the helicopter uses the atmosphere, which rotates with the Earth. That's a straw man, a very, very classic flat straw man.
No, I genuinely want to know though. What
okay, well, they're very different things. A pendulum isn't a helicopter, okay? So let me answer. Let me explain, right?
Well, I was trying to finish that thought.
Yeah, well, you've asked the question, why doesn't a helicopter do what a pendulum does? A helicopter is not a pendulum. A helicopter isn't attached to the Earth via a pivot point. A helicopter isn't swinging backwards and forwards. A helicopter has zero velocity compared to the Earth when it is hovering, which means it will have zero Coriolis forces being applied to it. A pendulum is moving. The helicopter is not. So the pendulum will have Coriolis forces applied to it. The helicopter will not. The helicopter is on Earth. The atmosphere rotates with the Earth, which means that the helicopter in the atmosphere also rotates with the Earth. Simple.
Okay. So, but just so you have the pendulum tied off to something, therefore it hovers in space and is therefore detached from the Earth's rotation.
It's still attached to the Earth via the pivot point, but the swing
that's
is
what I'm
allowed
trying
to maintain going.
That's what I'm trying to say, though.
Yeah.
The actual pendulum itself is detached from the Earth's rotation.
No,
that's why it's doing this right here when you hold it up, right?
Well, it's independent of the Earth's rotation.
So,
yes.
Well, that's what. Yeah, it's independent of the Earth's rotation. Let me make it super stupid so I can understand it, since I can't get it. So you have a pendulum right here. It's got the thing attached to it, holding it, and it can just float around. So while it's sitting here, the Earth is rotating around underneath it. That's why your little pendulum's doing this, right?
Exactly.
So it starts off doing this, but as the Earth moves and rotates, it starts doing this, right?
Yeah.
It's detached from the Earth. It's detached from the Earth's rotation, right?
It's independent of the Earth's rotation, but it's still attached to the
It's
Earth via
detached. Well, no, it's detached. It's not.
It's attached to the Earth via a pivot
therefore,
point.
It's not moving.
Wait, the pendulum is attached. Hold on, Bobby. The pendulum is attached to the Earth via a pivot point, right? So the point from which it pivots rotates with the Earth. Okay, does that make sense?
But that's what I'm saying, though. That ball, yeah, I hear you. It's got an anchor. I understand how the anchor works. The anchor's anchored down. The thing that's hanging off of it, it is detached from whatever the thing is anchored to. It's no longer attached to the Earth's rotation. The pendulum. You have it anchored to the pendulum. You have a ball hanging down from it. It is detached from the Earth surrounding it, its rotation. That's why it moves back and forth, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. How does that logically make sense to you if I can sit there and just put anything else up and detach it to anything, so therefore it's no longer attached to the Earth's rotation? Okay, you're saying that a helicopter doesn't work because it's not attached or whatever. The
helicopter isn't moving. A helicopter has zero velocity.
No longer in the Earth.
Let me answer before you.
But you're saying.
Let me answer before you go off. Let me answer, Bobby. Let me answer, Bobby. Let me answer.
But you're not.
Let me answer, Bobby. Stop. Let me answer. Right, you're saying the same thing over and over. Let me respond, okay? A helicopter has zero velocity compared to the Earth, all right? It is not moving compared to the Earth. But the bob of the pendulum has a velocity. It's swinging backwards and forwards. If you have zero velocity compared to the Earth, you will have no Coriolis forces applied to you. But the pendulum has a velocity. It's going backwards and forwards. So it's going to have Coriolis forces applied to it. They're different, and they will have forces applied to them in different ways. Because the helicopter has zero velocity compared to the Earth, it's not going to have any kind of drift applied to it from the Coriolis forces. The Coriolis forces will be zero. Does that make sense?
But we just agreed, but we just established that
So say that again.
Okay. I said we established that pendulum is detached from the Earth. That's why.
No, I said the pendulum is attached to. No, Bobby. The pendulum is attached to the Earth via a pivot point. It's not detached from the Earth. It's attached to the Earth via a pivot point. Stop saying it's detached. It's not.
I'm just trying to get you to make sense, though, because like I said, you're not making sense. You're saying that's what we already said. It's detached is what I'm saying. I hear you. You're not wanting to say detached. I'm saying it is detached and no longer connected to the Earth's rotation. The Coriolis
but it is
effect,
connected to the Earth.
Movement.
Bobby, why do you keep saying it's not connected to the Earth? Bobby, it is connected to the Earth via a pivot point.
Listen.
Why do you keep saying it's not connected to the Earth when it is?
Me and not letting, because you keep interrupting and you don't let me get to the finish point. I'm trying to fucking build up the line and let you understand what you're saying and how it doesn't match up at the end. But every time I get halfway through, you interrupt me. So how can I finish my statement?
Well, because your statement is false to start with. As soon as you say it's detached from the Earth, as soon as you say it's detached from the Earth, you're wrong. It's not detached from the Earth. The rotation of the Earth. Listen. It is not detached from the Earth. The rotation of the Earth is independent of the swing. But it is still attached to the Earth. Yeah, I've said that several times.
I asked you, I said, how it works for you, what you're claiming. You're saying this pendulum's suspended above the Earth's rotation. The Earth is moving around underneath it.
It's suspended above the Earth, but it's still attached to the Earth.
Suspended piece of metal.
It's right. All right, let me just
Okay.
clarify so that you completely understand. The pendulum is attached to the Earth via a pivot point, which allows its swing to
An
be
anchor point,
independent.
yeah.
I'm talking. Which allows its swing to be independent of the Earth's rotation. It is not detached from the Earth. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Are we clear on that? Are we clear?
Are you done? I didn't want to talk.
I'm asking a question. Are we clear on that?
No, because I sit there and clarified with you before I asked.
And I said the same thing.
How
Right.
it
I don't
works.
care what
You
you
sit
think
there
you
and
heard
explain to
before.
me.
We're going to clarify it now. And I'm going to say it once again so that you understand. A pendulum is attached to the Earth via a pivot point, allowing its swing to be independent of the Earth's rotation. Is that clear?
Is independent the same as being detached?
No, it is not.
Why is not?
Because it is still attached to the Earth.
Did you just
Fuck's
say
sake.
it's independent though?
Independent, the swing of the pendulum is independent to the Earth's rotation. The pendulum is still attached to the Earth. I don't understand why that's so hard for you to comprehend.
Because your terminology is what you're saying though, and you're sitting there saying that a helicopter doesn't do the same thing when it goes up
A
into the
helicopter
air
does not swing
because
back
it's
and forward, does it? Does a
No,
helicopter swing
yeah,
backwards
but
and
neither
forwards
does-
whilst right, Bobby, does a helicopter swing backwards and forwards whilst attached to a pivot
Sure.
point? Does it?
Probably. I don't know. Have we done that test?
Did you just have a How do you think a helicopter works?
What do you mean?
How does a helicopter hover above the ground?
Well, like you want to break down? Oh, it runs off of fuel. It uses
okay.
propulsion. It has
So
engines. It has
and how is
thrust
it creating
capability.
thrust to
It has
lift
spinning
above the ground?
gyroscopes.
Describe the mechanism that is making the helicopter float?
You're putting too much into it. What I'm
No, I'm
saying,
not.
though,
No,
is the
I'm not. I'm asking.
helicopter-
Right, Bobby,
yes,
this
you
is
are.
important.
You want to break it down? What makes it float?
Yeah.
God, dude.
How does a
This is
helicopter?
what I'm talking about. You
How
don't
does a
wanna
helicopter?
talk.
Oh my goodness, Bobby! How does a helicopter hover above the Earth?
It just sits there and hovers. It's got its thrusters. It's got two spinning propellers that create thrust
By doing what?
by doing what I just said, creating thrust.
Yeah. How is it creating thrust?
God, dude. You just stop fucking taking a piss and just explain
I'm not
what you
taking the
wanna
piss.
say.
This is a serious question.
Yes, you
How does a
are, dude.
helicopter
Every time I
create
say-
thrust? What is going on?
with it, with the fucking with the props. The props spin, creating a force that pushes down, and it thrusts upward.
A force in what? What is it using? What is the medium that is creating that thrust in?
Air.
Yeah, right. And is
don't
it
know. What do you want me
swinging
to say?
backwards and forwards whilst attached to a pivot point? Or is it using the air to create thrust? Which one is it?
Yeah, it's using air to create thrust.
Right. So, can we clarify that a helicopter has zero velocity compared to the Earth when it is hovering? Yes?
I mean, I assume so.
Right. Does a pendulum, when it is swinging, have zero velocity, or does it have a velocity?
Well, do you push it, or do you just stand it up and it just starts swinging on its own?
Well, it's swinging. You make it swing, and once it's
Well,
swinging... Once it's swinging, don't sidetrack. Don't sidetrack. Don't side. Bobby, stop. Bobby, stop,
Once you
please.
cut on the engine, no. Well, I was talking. Once you cut on the engine,
I'm in the
it starts
middle of
working.
a thought,
It moves up.
please.
Once you push it,
Bobby, I'm
once
in
you
the
push
middle.
a
Bobby,
pendulum
cut it out.
and
I'm
add
in the
you
middle of a
motion
thought.
to it, it's going to move.
I am in
Well, I
the
was in the
middle
middle
of.
of trying to
Oh my
finish that
God, Bobby,
statement.
Bobby, I'm in the middle of a thought. Stop interrupting when I'm in the middle of a thought. All right.
Are you
So,
thinking right now? 'Cause I don't
When
wanna interrupt
when a pendulum is swinging, does it have a velocity? Yes or no?
you. When you add it to it, it does.
When a pendulum is swinging, does it have a velocity? Yes or no?
Well, is it swinging on its own?
Yes or no,
was
Bobby?
there an
It's
outside
moving.
force?
Does it have a velocity?
I don't know. Because I can go hang up a pendulum right now. I'm in my
Fuck's sake.
basement, and if I hang it and just let it sit there and don't touch it, I
Right,
guarantee
listen
it
to
don't
the
start
words
moving.
that are coming out of my mouth. When a pendulum is swinging, does it have a velocity? Yes or no?
Yeah, with whatever gave it velocity, whatever
So
force was pushed on it, that's the velocity.
Doesn't care where. I just want you to
Oh,
get
don't
this right.
care
When it is,
where.
oh, Bobby, stop.
Care where.
Bobby, stop. It's just a yes or no question.
Dude, I'm gonna
Once
say
you've
I
answered
took a
this yes or
shot
no
every time you
question,
said
Bobby, oh my God.
Stop, we could be drunk, dude.
Bobby,
This is gonna be
when
fun.
I am...
I'm gonna make a drinking game. Hey, can I get the link to this so we can make a drinking game, dude?
Bobby,
because I'll be so happy. Dude.
Are you going to let me talk? Are we going to do this, or are you just going to be ignorant?
Oh, I don't know, man.
I'm trying to
answer your
talk to you,
questions.
but you
Go
are
ahead.
being incredibly ignorant.
Well, no, dude, because you came across something and you don't want to
It's a
explain it,
simple
and you wanna gloss
question.
over
It's a
it.
simple question,
the pendulum,
Bobby, right?
Yeah,
It's
can
a
I-
simple.
go ahead, ask your
Stop,
simple
Bobby.
question,
Stop
I'll
and
follow it
listen.
up with a
Oh
simple
my
question.
fucking God! There's a question I'm trying to ask, and then we can move on. When a pendulum is swinging, does that swinging pendulum have a velocity? Yes or no?
I don't know, man. I'd have to see
So
it.
you don't
I'd
know
have to
if
see it just
something's
start
moving
spinning.
if it has a velocity.
Well, I guess it does, yeah.
Yes.
If something has
there
velocity,
we go. Right. Okay.
if it's
So
in
we have
movement-
now agreed, Bobby. We have now agreed that a swinging pendulum has a velocity.
I don't think we agreed though, because I don't think we got to agreement on how that pendulum started.
It doesn't
swinging.
matter how it starts. We are talking about when it is
Yes,
swinging.
it does.
No, it doesn't. Right. Stop interrupting.
Well,
and stop. So we have now agreed that a swinging pendulum has a velocity, and a helicopter hovering above the Earth has zero velocity. That means only one of those things is going to have Coriolis forces applied to it. Which one do you think it is?
Neither.
If one is moving and the other isn't, which one of those on a rotating body would have Coriolis forces applied to it?
I'll tell you, if you didn't like my answer to the question the first time, asking it again is not going to get a
You
different
didn't
answer.
answer the question.
I said I did. I answered. I said neither one of them.
So you think that on a rotating body, something with a velocity wouldn't have a Coriolis
What
force applied
rotating
to it?
body? No.
The rotating body we are trying to discuss, Bobby. On a rotating
Okay.
body, will have something that has velocity have a Coriolis force applied to it? Yes, it will. Something
no.
that has zero velocity, like the helicopter, hovering, will not have Coriolis forces applied to it. A helicopter is
Right.
not a pendulum. Is that clear?
Let me know when I can ask a question. Yes.
Is
Can I
that
ask a
all?
question, though?
Is that all clear? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Brilliant. Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What's your
Crystal.
question?
Okay, so if I was to hang up that pendulum and it just sat there, nobody touched it at all,
Huh?
would it just sit there and not move? Nothing would affect it, right? Just like the
Yeah.
helicopter.
Yeah. There's no reason
So
it would just start
it-
on its own. Yeah.
But isn't it suspended and it's detached from the Coriolis or what? From the Earth's rotation? That's why it's spinning.
We never said it was detached from the Earth's rotation.
Okay, whatever. Separated when it is separated
Yep.
from the Earth's rotation. It
If it's
sits there
just
and
sitting
spins.
there,
That's why it
if
goes
it
back and
just
forth,
if it's
back and
just
forth.
sitting there, then it has no swing to be independent of the Earth's rotation. No. Remember, the Coriolis forces is
Yeah.
dependent on something having a velocity.
Well,
And if the
so
pendulum's just sitting
it's
there,
dependent-
if the pendulum
No,
is
wait,
just
wait,
sit,
wait.
let me
Say that
answer.
again. Say that
Let me
again.
answer before you go on. Let me answer. If the pendulum is
Well,
just
I wanted to
sitting
hear it
there,
again.
if the pendulum is just sitting there, it has zero velocity. Therefore, it will have zero Coriolis forces being applied to it. Okay.
So so it has to have velocity applied to it to have the Coriolis affected.
Yes, well done. That's what I've been trying to
Okay,
get at
so
all
what
this time.
happens? So when you use the thrusters on a helicopter to go up, is that not velocity being pushed upwards onto that helicopter? So
The
why would
question
it
was
not
when a
have
helicopter
Coriolis
is hovering, not during the process of going up.
effect? Okay, so takeoff. When it takes off, it has to worry about the Coriolis effect.
Yeah, but the engines give such a bigger force that the Coriolis forces will be practically nominal for the slight velocity of the helicopter going up.
Which way does the Earth rotate? What's it do it again? If airplanes take off going eastward, they'll just fucking sit there and stay hovering in the air forever because the Earth rotates underneath it faster than the jet can fly. Is that what you're saying?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no
let's
point
hear the answer to
in
it.
your rambling,
Let's hear the answer.
incoherent response
Yeah.
were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
That's great.
I'm sorry, that comes up automatically sometimes when there's dumb things said.
Yeah.
I didn't. What was your question?
Did you not just relate that all to each other? Did you not just get that, right? You said the velocity has to be applied to it for it to rotate, be affected by Coriolis, right? You said that the helicopter takes up, but the thrust gets it and it stabilizes it and it's not affected by the Coriolis, right? So when an airplane takes off, it is not affected by the Coriolis effect?
Yeah, but the Coriolis effect isn't the Earth rotating underneath something. That's not what the Coriolis effect is. The Coriolis effect is a lateral force applied to something that is already moving.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So it's applied to something that's already moving. So
yeah, but that again, it doesn't mean that the Earth just rotates underneath it. It just means that there is a lateral force.
Even move.
Yeah, it just means that there's a lateral. It just means there's a lateral force applied to it. But an aeroplane has engines. I'm still talking, Bobby. I'm still talking. I'm in the middle of talking. I am so sorry. I am so sorry that the middle of my sentence interrupted the beginning of yours. That's incredibly rude of me for that to happen, Bobby. I am so sorry about that.
Such a long pause. Don't pause as long in the middle. I'm confused.
I don't. You just can't wait to talk.
See, now is it my turn to take up now then?
Right.
Yeah.
So, aeroplanes. Would you like me to explain?
Go ahead, man. I'm very interested in what you have to say.
Would you like me to explain aeroplanes? Sure. Right. So, when an airplane takes off, it is using the atmosphere, very much like a helicopter, right? It uses the atmosphere for everything that it does. Now, that atmosphere rotates with the Earth. So everything the airplane does, it's relative to the Earth because it's all moving the same. So when an airplane is flying through the air, yes, at that point it has Coriolis forces applied to it. But the Coriolis force doesn't just mean the Earth rotates underneath. It means that there's going to be a deflection to a straight line path. And that deflection is so small compared to the force that the engines create that airplanes don't need to worry about the Coriolis force. Right?
What about when landing? They don't have to worry about it when they're landing?
No, because they've still got engines. When they're landing, they've still got engines on, don't they?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And again, they're still using the atmosphere. But that Coriolis force is still incredibly small. The Coriolis force isn't big, it's tiny.
Well, you just said a minute ago that, you know, it would have to affect it, that the helicopter would take off and its thrusters would stop it.
Yeah, because the Coriolis force itself is tiny, right? Let me ask you a question about Coriolis, because I don't know if you actually understand what Coriolis says will happen, right? So, let's imagine that we're on a rotating Earth, right? And we're at the equator facing north, okay? You with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Now, you've got a cannon in front of you, and you're facing north, right? And you fire that cannon north. What does the Coriolis effect say will happen to that projectile? Will it, A, drift behind the rotation of the Earth, B, go in a straight line, or C, drift ahead of the rotation of the Earth?
I'm assuming you're going to say it's going to drift ahead of it.
Yeah, so it's actually going to end up rotating faster than the Earth. Why? Do you know why it does that?
It did what? It broke free from the Coriolis effect?
No, it's the Coriolis force that's doing that. Okay, so when you fired that projectile from the equator, right, you were on a portion of the Earth that has a tangential speed of approximately 1,000 miles an hour. Okay? As you travel north, that tangential speed gets less until you get to the poles where you would just be spinning around on the spot. So there'd be no straight line, speed. So when you fire that projectile, you're in an area of the Earth that has a tangential speed of 1,000 miles an hour. But as that projectile moves north, it moves over areas of the Earth that have a slower tangential speed. So let's say that projectile has gone from an area of the Earth of 1,000 miles an hour to an area of the Earth with a 700 mile an hour tangential speed. But the projectile still maintains that momentum from when it was fired and still has that 1,000 miles an hour tangential speed to the right, meaning it will drift ahead of the rotation of the Earth because it now has more of a tangential speed than the part of the Earth it's over. Does that make sense?
Sure. What's the exit velocity of a cannonball?
I don't know. It's irrelevant to the conversation.
Well,
Right.
I mean, if the cannonball breaks the Coriolis, if it breaks rotation, right? That's what you're saying?
No, it's
breaks
doing this
free from
because of
rotation?
rotation, right? It's because it's rotating,
Okay.
right? It's because it's got that 1,000 mile an hour tangential speed because of the Earth's rotation, that as it moves to an area of Earth with a slower tangential speed, it keeps the higher tangential speed. So it's not breaking free from the rotation of the Earth. The rotation of the Earth is imparting a force onto a moving object. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So
when,
that's what Coriolis
so
is.
I'm
Coriolis
saying-
isn't just something rotating underneath the Earth. It's a rotating body imparting specific forces onto something that is moving whilst on that rotating body. Okay?
Yeah, it's like if you were to throw like a football or something and you put like a spin on it, it's going to curve towards the right. That's what you're saying, right? Though.
Well, no,
You're saying that the
spinning of a
rotation
football is
puts
different.
Puts a spin on it.
Spin of a football is
Well,
different to Coriolis forces.
It's the same though.
That's
You're
different.
saying if you shoot it, yeah, but you're saying the curve affects the projectile.
I'm
right?
saying the rotation
You're saying
of the Earth affects
rotation,
the projectile. Yeah.
Coriolis, whatever. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the spin of it.
Yeah, and this has been
affects the
demonstrated
cannonball.
actually
Basically
during
puts a spin on the
wartime, right?
cannonball. Makes it like a
So-
fastball.
So
Sure.
when the British were fighting the Argentines, right, and they were in the southern hemisphere, their artillery stuff on the ships, they have to correct for Coriolis. It's part of the firing procedure, right? But they were firing south when they normally operate, go in the north. And when they applied the Coriolis corrections to their projectiles to shoot at the enemy ships that were south of their position, what they found was that they were twice the distance off the mark than they would have been based on their corrections. Because when you're in the south, the Coriolis makes something deflect a different way compared to when you're in the north. So what they had to do was recalculate for being in the south to make sure that their projectiles could hit where they were going to go. Because when you fire something on a rotating body and it moves relative to that body, it's going to have Coriolis forces implied to it. And they had to take that into account to actually hit their targets. Thoughts? I can't hear you, Bobby. Have you muted yourself?
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, that's right.
Yeah,
so
I'm just saying I'm trying to figure out how that has an effect on a cannonball, right? Or the cannonball has an effect, right? But it doesn't have an effect on airplanes, spaceships, helicopters, hot air balloons.
I told you it does have an effect on those things when they're moving. Right.
Okay.
Now, a cannonball or an artillery shell, it doesn't have wings. It doesn't have engines. It doesn't have anything to fight against the Coriolis force. But a helicopter, a hot air balloon, airplanes, they do. They have sources of energy that create forces that are greater than the Coriolis. But a projectile doesn't have that, does it? If it's just an artillery shell. Does that make sense?
I mean,
It's ballistics versus controlled,
guess,
basically.
hmm
No one's saying that an airplane, when it's flying, doesn't have Coriolis forces applied to it, because it does. Of course it does. But the pilot or autopilot are just making constant corrections to stay on their course. And they've got big-ass engines that, don't really have to worry about the Coriolis force. Because it's tiny. But that tiny force applied over time to something without anything to fight against it is going to deviate, which is what happened when the British were fighting the Argentinians. Argentines? Argentinians? Argentinians?
Argentines, probably.
Argentinian. Why don't I know how to say that? But yeah, so this shows that we know the Earth's rotating because we actually have to take it into account when doing things like firing artillery. Military manuals for basic artillery, they have corrections for the rotation of the Earth as part of their training. Because the further you're firing something, the greater the deflection's going to be.
With snipers, yeah, the Coriolis effect on the snipers.
Long range snipers, yeah, when you're, generally say under like 1,000 meters, the Coriolis force applied is not going to be enough to make a difference. But when you're doing long range sniping, like over a kilometer, Coriolis force is very important. And there's a different mechanism when you're firing east and west, and you even have to account for the fact that it will deflect towards the sky or towards the ground because of what's happening from the rotating Earth. So yeah. Look, I know this has been quite heated, Bobby, right? But everything I've said has evidence to back it up.
Well, like I said, man, I don't really have much access to my stuff, because I have a few answers and a few questions. But I mean, like I said, I can't explain it specifically how you want me to explain it. But I'm sitting there telling you that what I've read, what I've seen, a lot of stuff I can counter what you're saying.
Well, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we try and arrange a second conversation when you've got access to your notes, right?
Well, let's just talk about. Do one topic real quick over something that we're not like ready to sit there and talk about. Just tell me what's your biggest thing that you would say proves that the curvature of the Earth is round, that the Earth's curved.
That proves that the Earth is curved. Measurements of it.
Mm-hmm.
The measurements of the Earth.
How do you measure? How do you measure it though?
Surveyors do it all the time. So long. Geodetic surveyors measure over large distances, and the way they do it is by setting up certain points and looking at them and forming triangles, right? So they go, well, this point, and this point, that makes a triangle, and then we move over, and this point, and this point, that makes another triangle, right? And then they put all those triangles together. And this has been done many times throughout history, and when they did it across the USA, what they found was that every single one of those triangles that they measured had greater than 180 degrees, which meant that they were all spherical triangles. They all had a spherical excess. And when they added up the spherical excess of all the triangles, they were actually able to calculate the radius of the Earth just from the measurements of the USA. And this hasn't just been done in the USA, it's been done all over the world, across Britain, Asia, in China, Russia, Europe, Africa. They've all measured the Earth using known surveying methods, and it always turns out the same, that all the triangles they use are greater than 180 degrees and show the Earth to be curved. Evidence of this can be found at mctoon.net/r. My favorite one being the transcontinental triangulation of the American arc of the parallel.
Hey, can I ask a question real quick to that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you're talking like elevation angles, right?
No. Not really.
Yeah, you do the triangles and stuff, right?
Yeah. We're not looking at things in the sky. We're measuring between points on the ground.
Getting the elevation. You just said like when you're surveying and stuff like that. That's getting elevation of the land. I'm not talking about in the air. I'm talking about when you're. That's how you get the elevation. Is this what I do?
You're sighting between points. So geodetic surveyors are sighting between different points and then measuring the known distances between those. And then when you've got the 3 points, you get a triangle, right? A triangle that sits on top of the land.
Yeah. So you're measuring elevation, right, with triangles, right?
Well, you would measure at the same elevation for each point.
Do you have a diagram? Can you show me how you would measure that?
Bring up the American arc of the parallel paper for you. /R. But every time this is done, they find out that the Earth happens to be curved, and they can calculate the radius of the Earth with it. /r. And let me just bring up the page. Oh, it's quite warm. It's one of the warmest nights we've ever had in Scotland here. It's like 24 degrees at 1:30 in the morning, and that's hot for us. All right, there we go.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right, so it's my buddy MC Toon's page. Radius of the Earth measurements. Where's the one that I like? Here we go. Account of the measurement of two sections of the meridional arc of... No, that's India. Wrong one. Here we go. Transcontinental triangulation and the American arc of the parallel. So here, a determination of heights between Pike's Peak and First View, right? So yeah, they're determine the elevation of the points to point to point and get all these triangles that they measure for each one, right? But when you actually
where's the ground?
Sorry?
Where's the ground at? Where's your triangle?
Well, here's all the triangles. So this would be at Pike's Peak, and that particular data point would have its own elevation and everything. This is just a quick diagram. Let me get up the actual direct PDF download. Come on, internet. Right, here we go. You can find all these yourself at mctoon.net/r if you want to look at them in your own time. They're quite detailed, obviously. Right, here's all the data points, the different places that they went. I'm trying to get to the actual table where they got the measurements in.
You go to elevation angles.
Right. Sorry, there's one big one I'm looking for.
It's okay. Like I said, I got probably about 5 minutes, man. I just got to ask you this question.
Yeah.
While you're doing this. I just needed to know.
I mean, this is just one of the measurements, anyway. There's many more, including radar measurements. The measurements that I've done myself when I was in the military by calculating fuel consumption over distance, which matched the what we say the Earth is. But we can go through that in more detail next time if you like.
Just real quick though. So you're measure the triangles, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you make a triangle and you measure what, the shadow?
No, you measure the angles of the triangles. It's nothing to do with shadows. It's using geodetic surveying equipment.
Let me ask you though. So it's like, how can you get two straight lines? How do you get two straight lines on a sphere?
You have. Oh my God! You go in with. You watch Nathan Oakley, right?
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, you do, because you've got that sextant argument there. You have a tangent to make your angle. That's how you do it. It's no problem.
Really?
Yeah.
It is, because you can't get a flat baseline.
You don't need a flat the baseline is imaginary. You realize that, right?
So then your number's imaginary.
No. When you take elevation angles of any kind, the baseline is imaginary. You know that, right?
No. I do construction. We do surveys every day. We look through the thing,
and you make an imaginary line. You make a line between your point and what you're looking at. That line is imaginary. So when you're using a sextant, right? You sight the sextant from where you are and you look at the horizon. You've made an imaginary line between the sextant and the horizon. And then of course you apply index correction, dip correction, refraction correction, parallax correction to get the actual tangent that you want. But the tangent line is imaginary. It's just a 90 degrees from your zenith. That's it. That's what a tangent is.
Imagine it's flat. That's the only way you can get that measurement.
Yeah, tangents are flat. Exactly. Tangents are to a curve, though, right? You can't get a tangent without a curve. And also you can measure angles from curves anyway. That's not a problem. But you know,
straight lines off of the curve, though.
Oh, a tangent is a straight line off a curve. So
You can't. You have to have a flat baseline.
yeah, and a tangent is flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Flat baseline, tangent to a curve, no problem.
If you're in a curve, you're not going to have a flat baseline. You'd have a curve.
Again, a tangent to the curve is what you use. You don't use the surface of the Earth. You use the tangent that you are making. A tangent to a curve. That tangent is flat.
But you're not measuring the curve of the Earth then if you're not using anything as a baseline. Now are you?
You're using the tangent to the curve.
You just said it's imaginary. You're not using.
Yes, of course the tangent's imaginary.
Then your number's imaginary. How can you have a number if you're not using a baseline? You're not using a foundation.
You are using a baseline, but that baseline is an imaginary line between you and the point that you are looking at. There's no physical line there in reality, is there? It's an imaginary line that you are putting there so you can do a calculation. Right, so I was in the Royal Navy. I was a sailor for years. Use sextant to navigate the ocean, which requires getting elevation angles on Earth. And the process that you do that knows the Earth is a curve, and you simply look at the horizon, make an imaginary line between your sextant and the horizon, and then apply the correct corrections to give you a tangent which is flat. There is no issues with having a tangent to a curve to get elevation angles.
Well, then you still have to have a straight, flat baseline. Your imaginary.
Yes, yeah, so we have it. Tangent. Our tangent is flat. There we go.
So therefore, your measurement has to be assuming that the Earth is flat.
No, because you apply corrections to it that take into account that the Earth is a globe.
So your numbers don't work then, because if you take the measurements, what the measurements are, but you act.
The numbers work perfectly because you can use the numbers to correctly navigate the oceans of Earth.
But yeah, you can use it to navigate the Earth, but you can't use it to detect curvature and shape and size.
You literally can.
You literally can't, because you said your foundation has to be imaginary, and you have to imagine that it's flat, so you're not getting
it's a tangent from one point to another that you are creating from your zenith, right? All tangents for anyone measuring angles are imaginary. Every tangent that you have ever made has been imaginary.
But you're measuring elevation. It doesn't have to be imaginary. You have the elevation.
Yes, it does.
Right elevation.
Your baseline is imaginary because you don't use the surface of the Earth as a baseline. You create a baseline from your site, right? The surface of the Earth isn't your baseline.
Yeah, you use triangles to measure curvature. Yeah.
You can use triangles to measure curvature, and you find spherical excess. Yes. Right, you're arguing against geodetic surveying.
You can't get two straight lines on a sphere. You have to use a flat baseline.
You're right that on a sphere you can't get two straight lines, which is why all the triangles were spherical triangles.
I know, but you're getting your measurements off of it and saying that it's a sphere. You can't get straight lines.
Because when you put it all together, you find that it curves. But you can get a straight line when that straight line is imaginary. It's no problem. Then you just apply the corrections to it to find out what you're actually looking at. This goes all back to the sextant argument that you have clearly got from Nathan Oakley.
This is a logical argument. I do construction work. I know about getting depth, and you have to have a certain elevation. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and right. So what do you use? So when you're getting an elevation angle, what are you using as a baseline?
The ground, the Earth.
No, you're not using the ground. No. I'm sorry, but no, you are not using the ground as your baseline because the ground is not flat.
It is flat. That's what I'm saying.
I'm sorry. The hills. Are you telling me that we can't get elevation angles from the side of a hill?
Yeah, you have to chop it down. You have to make it flat.
I'm sorry. Did you just actually say you can't get elevation angles from the side of a hill?
I said you can't get it off of a sphere.
But can you get it off the side of a hill?
If you're doing like
can you get it off the side of a hill? Yes or no?
What?
Can you get an elevation angle from the side of a hill? All right. So if you can get it off the side of a hill, which is curved, why couldn't you get it from a sphere, which is curved?
It depends on which elevation you're talking about. That's what I'm saying.
There's only one type of elevation. There's only one type of elevation.
But you're not. What?
There's only one type of elevation.
What?
There's only one type of elevation.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying you can't get straight lines off of that. You can't get straight lines off of a hill either. It's not going to be straight. You have to get a flat baseline.
Right, straight lines or not, can you get an elevation angle from the side of a hill?
The elevation of the hill, yeah.
Right.
But you're not going to have
that hill, right? And that hill is curved, right?
You're not going to do it trying to get
just come on. I'm asking you questions. Is that hill curved? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, right. And you can get an elevation angle from that hill. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Therefore, you can get an elevation angle from a sphere as well.
You can't get straight lines off of a curve. So
we can.
I gotta go, man. So you can hit me up.
And tangents are straight, and that's no problem. But we'll sort out another chat anyway. Thanks for the interesting discussion, Bobby. I'll speak to you soon.
All right, later.
Wow, he was aggressively thick, huh? Fucking hell. Just seeing what we got in here. Oh, yeah, Tommy, thanks. He's just left, though. Oh, yeah, so, wow. Knows nothing about any of these things, but wants to argue about them a lot. It's always fun. Dunning-Kruger, people. Next year's top left should be interesting. There was maybe going to be a second debate tonight, but Demok has run away. I'm just going to call him a pussy. So, what we do is tomorrow, which is Saturday. No, tomorrow's Friday. Yeah. Tomorrow I'm going to release a new episode of Debate Shorts. Thank you, Glober Mum. And then on Saturday will be a new episode of Flerfs Are Idiots. And also on Saturday I will be having round 7 with Dave Santiago. And then on Monday, Professor Philip Bell says he is available at 11 PM my time, which is perfect because that's exactly when Wendell is available to talk to him. So we'll also have that debate on Saturday. So I might do the debate and then release my video directly after. Yeah, that'll be what I do. Oh my goodness. Busy, busy, busy times at FTFE, huh? You guys have sent me so many super chats. What's wrong with you? Why do you like me? I love you all. I'm going to read super chats, then we're going to go home for tonight, guys. That was absolutely incredible. Flybuster says, FTFE can actually talk now that Jeffro McFlurf isn't around to interrupt him every half second. Now, I'm aware that I interrupted him as well, but I want... He starts saying one thing, right? And then Flurf brain just flits into a bunch of other things. And I want to be able to respond to one thing at a time so that it stops their train of stupid. I do try to not be so irritated with them, guys, but well, yeah, you know me, right? Oh, Eon Dust for $2 Australian says those who are tardy do not get a fruit cup. I want a fruit cup. Alright, Connor Silver for $5 says, if you ever need evidence of the dumbassery of Flerfdom, watch a Flerf debate and drive, safety third. Yeah, I didn't realise he was going to be driving. Flerfs. Signa Step for $5. One day I want to see Craig just let Flerfs talk as much as they want without saying anything. Give us the unadulterated Flerf experience. Yeah, if you just go to Tau Ceti Alpha's channel, you get that there. Signa Step, just read that one. Dreams for €5 says, does he believe in plate tectonics? If yes, how does it work on a flat Earth? If no, how does he explain the observable spreading rate of 7 millimeters per year in Iceland? The observable spreading rate, huh? Bow chicka bow. What? Shut up, Craig. Darren de Baron, been a member for 9 months, says, I'd send money, but I'm poor at the moment. But man, you're scraping the Earth's core at this point. The barrel is gone. We've got mobile Flerfs, AT&T and FTFE LTE. Don't worry, we're all poor, Baron. Whilst the oil companies bring in profits of 60 odd billion, whilst we struggle to keep our gas and electric on. It's wonderful, isn't it? 65 billion Eon made, right? 65 billion in profits. That's hard cash that they've made. Their CEO had a £36 million bonus, right? Take all that into account, whilst remembering that Eon have raised their prices 76% and say they're going to go up more. How can an energy company justify that much profits and still raising the cost of gas and electricity? Someone please explain this to me. Where is the justification in £65 billion of profit when every single person in the UK is struggling with a cost of living crisis? Where's the sense in that? Seriously. I spend nearly £10 a day in electric now because of the prices. And they're bringing in profits of 65 fucking billion. It's unethical. It's wrong. Because that money's not going to go back into the company to make it better. That's going to line the pockets of the shareholders. It blows my fucking mind. That money, that 65 billion, they should go, all right, well, we obviously don't need it all. Why don't we make people's bills cheaper and only get 20 billion profit? 20 billion's pretty fucking good, right? They could take 2/3 of the money they've made and still have more money than is conceivable. Ugh. Yeah, I get angry about this. I might do a video fucking debunking electric companies. Greg Edmund for $5 says, please ask Bobby if he took high school physics. I seriously doubt it. No, probably not. Eon Dust, $10 Australian. Bobby, you keep saying scientists say this and say that. If you want us to take any of that seriously, you're going to have to show us who said it and why it's correct. Please, not while you're driving. Mr. E-Man for $5 Australian. Flerf, prove what you say when asked for proof. Flerf says, nah. Yeah. See, his answer to the Cavendish experiment was, but it's electromagnetism. And then I explained why it's not electromagnetism. How it couldn't possibly be electromagnetism. Nah. Flerf reset. Are you kidding me? Member for 6 months says, does he think that radio waves and electromagnetic waves are different, like Failzoid? Oh, I've got a video about Failzoid coming. Connor Silver for $2. Dang it, Bobby. This boy ain't right. Indie Tiger's sci-fi review says for $5, the moon is moody because it's going through a phase. Boom. Tim Tully, $5. What was that experiment in Scotland with a mountain and the rock proving gravity? That is the Schehelian experiment. I talked Bobby through that. He went nutter. Mr. E-Man, $5 Australian, says G can be observed, measured, calculated, predicted, and tested. Always true. Yeah. But according to Bobby, you can't test gravity, you can't explain it, you can't describe it, you can't measure it. Oh, apart from these tests, measurements, and explanations and descriptions, you mean? Yeah, but none of that matters. So, Black Star EOP, €5, says, explain why we have software such as Stellarium, which matches reality, and Flat Earth has nothing. Because math lies, apparently. Anyone that says math lies doesn't understand maths. The only way that math lies is if you ignore reality and the variables. You know? I could make math lie if I change the gravitational constant to 94. You know? Maths is going to lie then because it's not going to match reality. But if your maths matches reality, then it's never going to lie. Unless you're really bad at maths. Of course. Caucasian Sensation for $5 says, Bobby, your ignorance is appalling. You quickly dismissed a man's education in a hand wave of stupidity. You're an idiot. Admit it. They will never admit their stupidity. They have to be special. Brad Dubay for $2 says, Bobby cannot explain his position Bobby cannot explain his position mechanically. I'm going to stop trying to pronounce that word. Mechanicalistically. Is that right? Yeah, let's go with that. Fuck you, Brad. Bill McGuire for $5 says, this guy's science understanding is 2 levels below finger puppets. Robin Dubin says, Craig, you must be really bad at maths because you accept I guess for conclusion for an absolute. What, Robin? I don't know if that made any sense. I never accept I guess as a conclusion. Please elaborate. Mechanicalistically. Yeah, hey. Connor Silver for $2 says, Bobby's UK accent is worse than Dick Van Dyke's. Do you want a bottle of water? Stringer News 1, 30 months he's been a member. And you know what? Stringer News 1 has been one of the longest, biggest and best supporters of this channel. And I just want to give him a massive, massive thanks for making it possible for me to be FTFE. Stringer News 1, all my love to you, my friend. He says, if we are going only on say-so, I say that Mix and Morley was an expedition to discover Bobby's brain, and all results were negative. Yeah. Those expeditions are never fruitful, unfortunately. Ableist UA for $5 Canadian says, Bobby, your denial of facts given to you by Craig, who spent years studying these things, is ignorant. You'd love it if you were told you can't drive, right? Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, NA. Making it red. Gotta love you. No response from Robin. A guess. Yeah, Robin, I don't take guesses as facts. I don't know what you're on about. Why Kick a Moo Cow? Hashtag 855 for $5 Australian says, Bobby, please explain to FTFE why pineapple does belong on pizza. I am with you, brother. Get out. Pineapple on pizza is an affront to the gods that don't exist. Pretty sure it's about in a Geneva Convention with cruel and unusual punishments, actually. Booman Chu says, FTFE, finding words Craig can't say, well, hi. New party game. Do it. All right. While I'm reading out the super chats, all right, I want you guys to find me 5 words that you think I can't pronounce. All right? Tag me in the chat with a word you think I can't pronounce. And it's not Earth, okay? Jeffrey Hellenbach for $5 says, while you were busy studying physics, I was busy studying the I don't believe evidence. All Flerfs. Make sure you tag me with the word, by the way. All right? Skidmark McGee, member for 3 months, says, so all he has is typical. That is the Flerf playbook. Atafarian for $5 says, his ignorance and incredulity are so massive they have their own gravitational well. Tim Pryor for $5 says, seriously, tell him to fly a small drone and a car doing 60, then ask him if the floorboard of the car moves under the drone. They don't understand reference frames. Oh, I see you're being cunts. Thanks. I can't pronounce any of those. Come on. Alright, I'll get there. It's 3 more super chats. Thank you very much for super chats, guys. You have no idea, honestly. Ableist AU for $5 Canadian says, Bobby, does it sound smart to say I don't know, but I guarantee it's not what you said? You have repeatedly said this. Yeah, I want Bobby to bring proof next time. Or evidence. You know what I mean. Mr. Unite for the chill win for $2 says, asking about the cations and onions. Only Trey knows about those. Trey blocked me. Tim Pryor for $5. Wait, what did he just say? He doesn't know if a helicopter swings him a pivot point. Ouch, my brain. Yes, he did. That'd be a short. NA for $6.66 says, FTFE, why do I have the urge to pack a bowl halfway through your show? Because that's what this does to you, my friend. Jaybird Max for $2 says, Bobby, how did you ever get a driver's license, mate? By talking in a live stream whilst driving, apparently. The Jumbo Show for $2 says the guy is not the sharpest pencil of the box. He's like a picnic basket, except you forgot the picnic basket. I fucked that up, didn't I? Philosopher King Gaming $2 says this guy is on the Triple H level of obtuse. On the first debate I did yesterday, there's a pinned comment by Triple H. Have fun. Connell Silver for Allison for $2 Australian. Why is all navigation based on the globe? Because it's a globe. I'll ask him that next time. Connell Silver for $5. Silly FTFE. Bobby's barely escaped his mum's basement. He's never been on a plane. You're talking way above his level. My God. I can't believe how many super chats there is. I love you. Eon Dust for $10. Bobby, I'm going to try and say this in the nicest way possible. Find something else to do with your time. Something more productive, because you clearly ain't cut out for this sort of thing, sweetheart. There's so many. Tim Davidson for $5. Why ask for evidence when you're going to ignore it? Is that the poo signal? Lord Illuminous Poo for $5, he was called, says, in the beginning, the Frisbee Earth was thrown into the darkness, spinning through the void by God's hand. The end cometh when we are fetched by the dog. Do you remember I debated a flat earther that said the moon was a dog's chew toy? A Lord Illuminous Poo for $5, point of sight and point of your location. 2 points can be connected by a line. An imaginary line. Obi-Wan for $5 says, bong replacement fund, starting a Kickstarter to go to the boulders orbiting Mount Everest. Thanks, I will be getting a new bong because having to smoke it like this hurts my throat. Slick says £5. The straws kept slipping through Bobby's fingers and he kept trying to grasp them. Fogger Persha Bakashi has been a member for 16 months, says, with utilities, it is simply 3 words. Monopoly and greed. It is worse in the US. Watch Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. Great segments on utilities. Yeah, I'm mad at energy companies, and I might do a video. Andreas Elditch for 56. Ferengi War of Acquisition 202. The justification for profit is profit. Fucking Ferengis. NANA being an absolutely fucking madman and sending me $60.60. Boom, boom, boom. Says, I really enjoy your channel. Please never stop what you do. I won't. I'm never going to stop what I do because you fucking awesome people are here watching me. I love it. Tim Davison for $2 says, say hippopotomonstrosquia per dallaphoria. Hippopotomonstrosquia. No, I can't. NA $6.66 says 5 words. Marvel was better than DC. In brightest day, in darkest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lanterns. I'm a nerd, aren't I? Brad Dubé for $2. Here's $2 more. Anime. Anemone. Anemone. I hate you guys. Tomato Priestess Zumi, been a member for 7 months, says pneumonotram pneumomonotramma microscopica silicovolcanoconosis. Fuck is that? Joe Black for £2 says math doesn't lie. Pineapple plus pizza. Get out. Pat in the chat, $5. These arguments against gravity are going to cause me to drink more. Dear Flerfs, we're on a giant source of gravity. Tim Davison for $2 says it means the fear of long words. Oh, great. And then Ari for $2 says try to pronounce otorhinolaryngologist. Right, let's see what you've got in the chat. Conor Silver says anti-disestablishmentarianism. I can do that one. Daniel Cooper wants me to say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Haha, I can do that. Sean Carroll says give FTFE some Welsh words. No, don't. Teppo Tulapo says, oh, I've lost it. Oh, no. Let me go back. I want to try and say these words. All right. Yeah, Teppo wants me to say Perineum, I can do that one. Oneo Sayan says I have to say chartreuse. Chartreuse, is that right? Chartreuse? Zachary Burns says Zerodermer opigen Zerobert Zerodermopigmentosum. Zerodermopigmentosum. Fuck is that? D Asperger says, you know what? I'm not even going to try that one. Fuck you. Yeah, I can't do words. Brainy Beaver says, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Done that one, Brainy. Brainy, I love you, dude. NA for $6.66 says, what? Green Lantern? The power to put you to sleep? Ooh, them's fighting words, NA. Jaybird Max wants me to say serendipitintitties. Serendipitintitties. And Brainy Beaver says, I still can't say aluminum right. Well, actually, I said it wrong there. It's aluminium, you colonial gits. Tim Davidson for $5 says, oh, he's broken it down. Hippopoto monstrous aquipadelahophobia. The fear of long words. Why would they do that? That's just mean. Facty wants me to say Lake Titicaca. Lake Titicaca. 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 Oh, what fun. You guys are amazing. It's going to be it for tonight, guys. I've had a fantastic evening. In fact, I've had a fantastic 3 debates over the past few 2 days. You missed the ones yesterday. You could probably honestly skip the first one because, I don't know, Dave was trying to eat his microphone or something. But he'll be back on Friday, hopefully with working audio. But the second one was a pretty good discussion with Wendell Warner about gravity, which is going to continue with Professor Bell on Monday around 11 p.m. Special Bean Cannon wants me to say analogous. Brainy Beaver says he wants me to say adiabatic expansion. Fuck you, Brainy. All right, dick. Solixus for £5 says, well, let's be honest, FTFE, the Green Lantern movie definitely put us all to sleep. There's never been a Green Lantern movie. That never happened. You can't prove to me that Ryan Reynolds was Green Lantern. That was never a thing. Who else is excited about the new 10-year plan for the DC universe, though? But also, who's slightly annoyed that they're not going to get to see Brendan Fraser as Firefly? Because I am. Right, a couple more words. We got Anayan Sayan wants me to say Macon Kospau. Tepotulu says I've got to say Ilostona Nathan Oakley. I lost Nathan Oakley. Yeah, anyone can lose Nathan Oakley. Rick Sanchez, been a member for 19 months, says poopy wieners, and why not? That sounds like a good place to finish for tonight. Thank you very much for all the support, guys. The super chats is amazing. Obviously, you know I will never charge for my content. The support is amazing and allows me to keep going, but what I do will always be free. Best way to help me do what I do, if you can't support financially, is to share my streams on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Bebo, MySpace, Telegram. I'm sure there's more social networks. You know, just share them all. Lord of Luminous Pooh, getting in one last $5 super chat, says, I'm one of those people who sneezes in bright light. It's called Aldo-compelled helio-opiphanic outburst. The bastard's called Ed. Remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat. Love you all. Mr. Unite for the chill win, $2 says, my Dixie wrecked. 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 Fight the flat.
I'm an idiot.
I'm a stupid
Moron.
Ugly face and a big butt.
I love Zack Snyder's Justice League.
smells, and I'd like to
And they're
kiss
going
my
canon
own
for that.
I'm an idiot.
Good night. All the love.